The wind keened over the ragged stones of the wall, carrying with it the familiar sense of pine pitch and distant frost. Jon Snow stood upon the parapet, black cloak rippling behind him. Ghost padded silently at his side, red eyes bright in the moon-pale dark. The direwolf paused, nose lifting, as if he too sensed that change hung in the cold air like a sword poised to fall. Jon's gloved hands tightened on the rough ice. He had lingered long after the lanterns of Castle Black guttered out, unable, or unwilling, to climb down. All that was left of the night watchman's world seemed suspended around him. The wheeze of rope in pulleys, the soft groan of distant timbers, the crunch of frozen hoarfrost beneath his boots. Yet beneath those sounds beat the frantic hammering of a truth he could no longer pretend did not exist. He heard the crunch before he saw the man. Maester Aemon's lantern bobbed like a lone star on the winchway. "Lord Snow," the old maester called gently, his voice hoarse but steady as midwinter creek ice. "You might catch your death. Perhaps." Jon did not turn. He had come to cherish Aemon's counsel over the long, lonely months since Lord Commander Mormont's ranging. But tonight, words felt jagged in his throat. "Or perhaps the wall has kept enough of my deaths at bay already." Aemon's lantern halted beside him. "Your raven," he said at last, gloved hands settling on the parapet. "It never returned. Ravens know when letters are meant to be read." Jon closed his eyes. He had written and destroyed 3 separate messages in as many days. One he'd addressed to his uncle Benjen, as though Benjen still walked beneath the same sky. The second had been meant for Sam at Winterfell. No, at Harrenhal now. Sam had sailed south. The third he had left unsealed, ink drying to black cracks before he burned it. None had carried the words raging inside him. "I cannot seem to find the beginning," he whispered, "nor the ending." "There are some truths," said Aemon, "that can only live outside letters. Tell me." Jon's breath steamed between them. "I am not who I thought." The words felt thin. "My father, Lord Eddard." His fingers curled against blue-white ice. "I dreamed of the Tower of Joy again. Only this time the dream would not fade at dawn." Lyanna screaming, "Promise me, Ned," over and over, as though the plea were for me alone. He swallowed. "Maester, I know it now. She was my mother, not some nameless camp follower." Aemon inclined his blind head. "And your father?" "Aegar Targaryen." The name tumbled out like a dropped blade striking stone, too loud in the hush. Ghost whined low, nuzzling Jon's gloved wrist. "Aegar and Lyanna. A dragon and a wolf. The truth makes bastards of 1,000 lies, Maester. If I remain silent, Robb will bend the north toward war, believing I am his father's shame. But if I speak, 7 hells, if I speak. You change the war before it begins." Aemon touched Jon's elbow. "Truth is a dragon's egg, Lord Snow. Hold it too tight and it shatters. Hold it too loose and it falls. Then how do I bear it?" "First," Aemon said softly, "accept that it is yours alone." When dawn crept over the wall, thinning the pale stars, Jon descended. He found the rookery still and chill, windows rimed with frost flowers. Ink froze in its well. His quill splintered once before it obeyed. Yet when he finished, the letter was shorter than he had planned. "Robb, before you raise banners, know that I am no Snow. Lyanna's blood beats in my veins and Rhaegar's too. I am your cousin, yet by all the laws of conquest, I may be more. I would not see the North bleed for a crown I never sought. Meet me at Moat Cailin, beneath Truth's banner. Bring only those you trust. Jon." At the bottom, he bled a single drop of wax and pressed Ghost's white wolf seal. He chose a swift black raven, the fastest in Aemon's coat. The raven took wing into a world turning red-gold with sunrise. Jon watched the bird until it vanished, a dark speck swallowed by dawn's glare. The decision left his body trembling like a bowstring loosed. Ghost brushed against him, and Jon sank fingers into the direwolf's thick pelt. "It's begun," he murmured. Whether relief or dread pulsed in his veins he could not say. The raven reached Winterfell in 3 days. Robb Stark was in the great hall, warhammers sprawled across a map of the neck, when Hallis Mullen entered, gauntlets slick with sleet. "A message, my lord." He offered the scroll, as though it might bite. Robb slit the seal, recognized the white wolf. But the words beneath turned the hall colder than the snows outside. Catelyn's breath caught. She read over his shoulder, hand pressed to her throat. "No, this cannot." He would not jest. Robb said quietly. The stag's banner stood ready by the hearth. Lord Rickard Karstark and Great Jon Umber waited to ride south. The kettle drums of war thrummed in every corridor of Winterfell. Yet the words shifted the ground under him. "I may be more. Rhaegar's get." Karstark spat. "Blood of the Mad King's line?" Catelyn's palm struck the map. "He is Ned's, no matter what lies grow in winter wind." Her fury shocked even herself. She had prayed for years to forgive the boy for Ned's honor. But the stark thought of Targaryen fire flickering behind Jon's gray eyes made her voice tremble. "This is treachery, Robb. Written to sow doubt precisely as we march." The great Jon's laughter boomed. "If the lad fancies himself a dragon, let him fly south and roast the Lannisters. Stark wolves have thicker hides." But Robb's gaze lingered on the script, the sure hand. He remembered snowball fights in the Godswood. Jon's grin the first day they bested Sir Roderick together. 2 swords against his padded haft. "Jon would never betray us," he said. "If he writes this, he believes it." Karstark growled. "Belief births bastards just as sure as beds." Catelyn's eyes shimmered. "Robb, you must burn that letter and ride. Every hour's delay hands the Lannisters another hostage." Robb bent, knuckles whitening on the wooden neck. "If Jon is Rhaegar's lawful son, 7 hells. If Rhaegar wed my aunt, then Jon Snow is Jon Targaryen, heir not only to Dragonstone, but the Iron Throne. His claim is stronger than Baratheon's. Stronger than Joffrey's. Gods, maybe stronger even than Viserys had." His voice cracked. "If the realm learns before we move." His mother's fingers gripped his sleeve. "It will not. We will keep this quiet. But the letter demands I meet him." Karstark slammed his mailed fist. "An ambush. The Kingslayer's trap." "No, Jon would never." Robb's jaw tightened. "But truth or trap, I will look into my brother's eyes and judge." He rolled the map aside. "We ride at dawn for Moat Cailin. River winds cut cold through the neck. Marsh birds scattered before the stark column as they wound between black pools and tangled alder. Under a white banner of truce Robb rode at their fore. Gray wind pacing ghost-like between the horses. The direwolf's head turned north as they neared the ruined fortress. Jon waited near the broken causeway, his cloak furled tight against driving mist. Ghost stood beside him, taller than Gray Wind by a hand. Behind Jon, a lone brother of the watch held their horses. Steel gleamed nowhere. Even Longclaw was strapped to the saddle. The sky drizzled steady sleet that beaded silver on fur and wool. Robb dismounted. Direwolf circled, teeth bared, but stopped short, tails low. Jon's breath plumed as he stepped forward. For a beat the boys stared. No men now, yet still carrying the memory of Winterfell's high stone towers in their hearts. "Brother," Robb said. "Robb." Jon's voice trembled. "I feared you would not come." Gray Wind snorted. Ghost-tocked ears. "I would not let swords be drawn until I knew." Robb studied Jon's face. Painting the silver in the irises. Some dragon's brand upon pale skin. He saw only fatigue and hope flickering behind gray eyes. "Tell me," Robb said. Jon's tale spilled beneath the dripping ruins. How Lord Commander Mormont's ranging brought him to Craster's Keep. How a fever dream of the Tower of Joy gripped him on the long ride back. How Maester Aemon guided him through dusty tomes recounting Rhaegar's last days at Dragonstone. How a sealed letter north from Howland Reed, sent on the quiet at Jon's request, laid bare the secret wedding in Dorne's red waste, beyond Ashara Dane's fall, witnessed by the Crannogman alone. Robb listened, boots sinking into moss-soft stone. Howland Reed had ridden south with Ned Stark and 3 companions and returned north with grief-struck eyes. All knew that part. But the weeping Reed had also carried a promise. Silence until the right heirs stood ready. The words cut deeper than damp coal. Aegar married Lyanna, Jon said. Voice raw, with a septon and the old gods as witness. If that union stands, I am no bastard. Robb scrubbed rain from his face. If my father knew, why keep you bitterly named Snow? Why let the realm think Lyanna stolen and dishonored? Because Robert Baratheon's wrath would have burned the babe alive, Jon whispered. Ned hid me as he must. He saved me as he saved the realm from Robert's vengeance. Robb exhaled hard. Yet to reveal this now, I sought no crown. Jon's hand lifted helplessly. But once the realm learns, Joffrey's claim falters. Robert's heirs are false. Stannis would war against me, against you. I had to tell you before swords crossed south. Robb's thoughts churned. War camps, banners, vassals sworn. If the North rose for vengeance, they might find themselves crushed between Southron lions and the dragon their own blood conjured. But to hide such knowledge was its own betrayal. A distant horn sounded across the fens. A lonely call. Thunder rolled behind low clouds. Robb glanced skyward, rain slicking his curls flat. The gods send omens enough. He faced Jon. Brother, cousin, whatever blood names us, I swore to protect my people. If this truth shields the North from ruin, we must wield it. But speak it too soon, and Lannister gold will silence us before winter's first snow. Jon met his eyes. Then what do? We ride for Riverrun, Robb said, and for King's Landing in time. But first, we gather proof. Septon's records. Howland Reed's word. Daenerys Targaryen's absence. Every stone that holds your name. You. Catelyn would scorn such madness, but Robb felt the pulse of something larger than wolves beneath his skin, a great wheel turning. Stark honor had cost his father his head in the south. Yet perhaps dragon's fire could temper Wolf's resolve. Catelyn Stark received the news like a blade. In the candlelit quiet of her tent, she confronted Jon with eyes that once warmed no bastard. If Lord Eddard broke his vows, he broke me too, she said. Yet I forgave him. Now you would claim that sin was not his, that everything I lived with was a lie. No. Jon bowed his head. I never wished to wound you, my lady. Her breath shook. You may be a Targaryen, but you were raised a Stark. Remember that when dragon dreams tempt you. I do, and I will. He met her gaze. Whatever crown others claim for me, I will not set Winterfell to flame. Her silence lingered, but when she finally looked away, it was tears shining on her cheeks, not fury. Moon after moon turned over the green neck. Ravens flew, riders rode. Robb's host crossed the Twins, leaving silver coins and iron oaths with Lord Walder Frey for swift passage. Catelyn pressed on to Riverrun to plead with her dying father. Hoster Tully. For River Lords strength and silence alike. Jon returned briefly to Castle Black, cloak still black, vow still chaining him to ice and shadow. Yet letters outpaced even his word. Ghost followed him like a pale memory through vaulted corridors, unsettling brothers with his red gaze. Maester Aemon spent long evenings poring over dusty treatises. Pip and Gren speculated behind cupped hands. Dolorous Ed muttered that kings were like boils. Pop 1 and 7 more sprouted. When word reached Stannis on Dragonstone, his fury thundered loud enough to crack the painted table. Lord Tywin read a ciphered scroll and felt his jaw tighten. The Kingslayer's capture now, but one more stone upon an unsteady tower of wars. Somewhere across the narrow sea, Daenerys Stormborn, last dragon, so men said, dreamed of a shadow-haired brother she had never known. The sea smelled of salt and smoke. Deep in the Wolf's Wood, Bran Stark's dreams changed. In the eyes of a great raven, he flew above black water toward a red stone tower. Inside, A woman's hand clasped a blood-slick blade, and a babe who would not cry, though tears shone on his cheeks. The raven's call shattered stone. Bran woke with Hodor's arms around him and Summer's yellow eyes fixed upon the moonlit doorway. Something had stirred across hill and dale, a ripple that reached even boy lords bound to broken bodies. On a chill morning outside River Run, Robb knelt by his father's bones. The Silent Sisters had borne the bones north under secret guard, but Catelyn insisted he see them blessed before they traveled to Winterfell. Jon stood nearby, cloak drawn, face pale. He could almost feel Ned Stark's hand on his shoulder. A father still, no matter the blood. As the Septon spoke prayers, wind stirred Lord Eddard's grey cloak, empty of flesh, and set it flapping like a banner. Robb pressed his brow to the casket. When he rose, eyes red, he drew a breath that seemed to carry all the weight of the North. He looked to Jon, and in that moment, every knight and bannerman assembled felt the hidden pulse of change. "My lord," murmured Greychanumber. Robb lifted his voice. "This is the man my father raised as son and brother to me. Whatever name the realm gives him, he is Stark at heart. Yet the realm must know the truth of who stole my aunt and broke my house. Houses Baratheon and Lannister both sit thrones built on lies. We ride to set those lies ablaze." A hush swept the shields. The wet blood smell of oaths filled the air. Jon's chest tightened. He had feared Robb might cast him aside, deny the dangerous claim. Instead, Robb wove him into the northern cause as both Stark and Dragon. Ghost bristled, muzzle lifting to the distant south. They would march toward crowns and gallows alike. That night, Jon stood on River Run's battlements, moonlight bending across the tumbling river. The taste of distant ash clung to the wind. He thought of Nymeria's howl on the Trident's banks in his dreams. Somewhere downriver, Arya might still be lost in gnarled woods, alone. Sansa trapped in the Red Keep, a songbird in a gilded cage. Bran and Rickon, under Winterfell's yet strong walls. A flap of wings sounded behind him. Aemon's raven settled. Silver pinched in its beak. Jon took the letter, heart hammering, sealed in green wax, stamped with a crowned stag. Stannis Baratheon taught. He broke it. The words inside were spare as steel. To the bastard once called Snow or the prince named Targaryen, I am the rightful king. If you hold Rhaegar's blood, bend the knee, and prove your loyalty by delivering me Winterfell and half the North's swords. Otherwise you are a pretender no different than the boy Joffrey. The Lord of Light will burn away all false crowns. Stannis of House Baratheon, first of his name. Jon crushed the parchment. Flames of a brazier licked the night nearby, but he did not cast the letter in. Ghost growled low. The direwolf's reflection flickered red in the brazier's glow, fire dancing upon pale fur like omen. Aemon had warned him. Truth is a dragon's egg. Already fissures spread across the shell. Jon sensed fire within. Hungry. Waiting. In King's Landing, Queen Cersei paused at her mirror, as Pycelle babbled of troubling rumors from the north. Targaryen bastardry. She scoffed, yet her smile did not reach her eyes. If the North's wolves marched behind a dragon, could even a lion's fangs hold? Joffrey shrieked for another catapult demonstration, oblivious to the shifting tides. Varys, listening unseen in the shadow of a statue, felt the currents twist. Lord Baelish fingered his mockingbird pin and began to sell grain at triple price. The game sharpened. Rain weighed heavy upon Robb's army as they crossed the Green Fork. Night fires cast wavering halos around mailed men whispering of dragons hatched in the north. Jon rode beside the young wolf, his black cloak replaced by dark gray trimmed in crimson. No banners bore his sigil yet, but rumors flew faster than ravens. The frozen dragon, the Wolf King's blade. In quiet moments, Jon practiced words he might never speak. My right, my crown, my duty. Yet each time, he saw Eddard Stark's eyes and felt a father's stone-cold counsel. Honor is not a throne. Duty is not a sword. The realm's safety comes first. So he kept his counsel, even as horns sounded ahead, and scouts galloped back with word. Lannister outriders on the road to Harrenhal. War's teeth bared at last. At midnight on the Morek plain, Robb's host met Sir Stafford screening cavalry by surprise. Summer storms lashed the grass. Lightning split the sky, lighting dire wolves leaping through tents, stark banners whipping. Jon's heart pounded as he wheeled his courser, Longclaw flashing pale. Ghost bounded beside Grey Wind into chaos. Blades rang, men screamed, rain hissed on steel. Jon found himself face to face with a mailed knight shouting, "Bastard!" Before steel met steel, Jon parried, riposted, felt the weight of ancient Valyrian steel bite through enamel and bone. Blood spattered hot against his face. He'd killed before against wildling raiders, but this felt different, southern blood, flowing for a claim he wished he'd never uttered. When dawn grayed the horizon, Stafford's men lay broken. Robb rode among corpses, cloak torn, Grey Wind's jaws red. He hailed Jon, and in his eyes burned a fierce pride, but also dread. "South knows now," he said. "They will whisper the dragon's name tonight." Jon wiped Longclaw's blade and watched the rising sun gleam crimson upon its rippled steel. Every step henceforth led deeper into fire. Yet he felt strangely calm, as though some part of him had stood in that fire since birth. "My place," he answered, "is beside you, until we end the lie." Robb clasped his forearm. "Then ride." They turned south, toward Harrenhal's melted towers, King's Landing's gilded gates, and the thrones of men who dreamed they ruled the realm. Overhead, thunder rolled like the beating of vast wings. On Dragonstone, Stannis stared at black waves, slammed white against basalt cliffs. Davos stood silent beside him. "A boy cloaked in wolfskin thinks to claim the dragon," the king muttered. "But dragons are fire-made." His lips pulled thin. "Let the flames judge." Inside the chamber of the painted table, Melisandre piled oily leeches on smoldering coals. 3 names fell from her lips: Joffrey Baratheon, Robb Stark, Jon Targaryen, each swallowed by crimson smoke. Outside, a storm cloud boiled scarlet beneath the moon. Far to the east, Daenerys Targaryen woke from fever to find her dragons snarling at the tent's flap, as if they scented distant kin. The wars of 5 kings had begun once already. Now the realm whispered of a 6th. Though some said he was not a king at all but a prince come again. The song of ice and fire bound in flesh. Others spat that Targaryens were cursed and should have died with mad Eris. Septons prayed. Mummers sang. Smiths forged. At Moat Cailin, ravens still nested in broken towers. In the dawn hush, one cawed to its matee. A sharp, restless cry as the wind shifted northward, heavy with snow and ash. And far beyond the curtain of ice, something else stirred, colder than old night. The wall would not keep it much longer. Ghost lifted his muzzle into the storm-laden wind and howled. The sound carried a raw, fierce note that set men's hearts pounding, as if somewhere a great door had opened and winter itself walked through, seeking the heat of dragon-forged truth. Ka. Dawn bled slowly over the soaked grasslands, washing last night's carnage in pale rose light. Rain had ceased only an hour before. Its glittering remnants threaded every sword notch, every rent in boiled leather, and pooled in shield dents like 1,000 mirrored suns. Carrion crows hopped brazenly between broken pikes, their croaks a raspy counterpoint to the muffled sobs of the wounded gathered round surgeons' tents. The smell of wet steel mingled with blood, horse sweat, and trampled sedge, creating a pungent steam that rose in wisps across the plain. Jon paced the perimeter, Longclaw belted but sheathed, Ghost a white streak among looming heaps of mail-clad dead. Each time the dire wolf paused to sniff a fallen Lannister, Jon's heart clenched, half fearing the animal would begin to feast. Yet Ghost merely touched cold flesh with his nose, as though ensuring an enemy's quiet would remain eternal, then padded on. Near the rim of the temporary encampment, gray-green banners drooped beside a hastily strung pavilion. Within, Robb Stark conferred with Lord Rickard Karstark, the Great Jon, Mage Mormont, and Edmure Tully. Jon heard only the cadence of their voices, anger, relief, weariness, but not the words themselves. Guards had kept him from this council, so the lords might speak freely about a dragon among wolves. He stopped at the tent's closed flap, one palm hovering over the canvas. Ghost sat, red gaze fixed forward. The dire wolf's ears flicked once, twice. Jon sucked a breath that tasted of cold iron and, stepping around, found a wooden stool by the entrance. He would wait until summoned. Inside, Robb's voice rose. Stafford Lannister's rout won't save us twice. Tywin marches. Sir Kevan has rallied the Westerlands. Karstark's reply rumbled like distant thunder. Then we strike first. Ride for the Golden Tooth before their columns tighten. We promise River Run relief, Edmure countered. Hoarse from days with too little sleep. Sir Jaime may be in irons, but Gregor Clegane rides the Riverlands unchecked. Hoster Tully's bannermen cling on a thread. And the Freys growing restless, Mage Mormont growled. Walder's sons mutter about captives and wedding pacts already broken. Great Jon slammed a mailed fist into his palm. Let the old weasel mutter. Our swords won the ford. Our swords broke Stafford. We're half a kingdom from the twins. Lord Walder has all the time he likes for sulks. Dan. Robb's reply was quieter, yet carried. He also has the crossing, and we have my sisters in Lannister hands. A wrong step loses all. A pause, then. We must decide whether Jon's claim travels beneath wolf banners or none. Karstark answered first. Blood alone is wind. Swords are stone. If he carries a dragon's crown in his purse, show it when the time comes, not before. Hiding it too long, Edmure warned, and every Southron lord calls us liars. Best we wield truth like a sword before another brandishes it as whip. Dander. Greyjohn spat. Truth? Ha! The Lion Queen's small folk won't believe a babe of wolf and dragon unless a maester's scroll breeds legs and walks to court reciting vows. But a dragon stirring in the north? Aye, that puts the fear in Tywin's bowels. Let him tremble. Jon listened, face expressionless, though each sentence landed like hammer blows. Ghost pressed against his knee. The wolf's flank vibrated with a low growl that set nearby sentries shifting nervously. The flap opened. Grey Wind stepped out first, fur damp, muzzle still rust-dark from battle. Behind him Robb emerged, eyes ringed in exhaustion's bruise yet bright, with the keen focus of command. When he saw Jon, his shoulders eased. Come, Robb said. We ride within the hour. He beckoned toward the horizon where low hills smoked beneath dawn haze. Harrenhal first. Tywin mustn't seize its stores. Jon rose. And my place? Robb met his eyes. At my side. The council accepts that, whatever your birth, we need your sword, and we need your counsel. Bah. And the truth? The truth rides too, Robb answered. Voice pitched so only Jon heard, but like a knife kept in sleeve, not brandished at every shadow. A brittle relief bloomed in Jon's chest. He inclined his head, feeling the weight of decision settle deeper on his shoulders. They shared a curt nod, then separated. Robb to rally outriders, Jon to ready the men had been given command of. 300 archers under Sir Helman Tallheart, plus the black-cloaked veterans who had followed him south after the ranging. Men whose vows hung lighter since news of White Walkers at the Fist trickled through rumor and half-remembered nightmares. Jon found Sir Helman by a wagon stacked with Baratheon green arrow baskets captured weeks ago at the stone mill. Tallheart offered a respectful dip of his spear. Lord. He caught himself, cleared his throat. Sir Snow. Jon bridled at the title more sharply than he might have days ago. Jon is enough. My Night's Watch vows still stand. I keep no lords, sir. Tallheart's eyes flicked to Ghost and back. As you say, my men are strung and waiting. Food and salts. 3 days' ration. More once we reach Harrenhal. Jon scanned the archers. Skinny boys from Deepwood, sunburned spearmen of Fair Isle forced into northern service. Grizzled farmers turned bowmen after the fields of Fisher. Some looked away from his gaze, fearful perhaps of the rumor he carried in his veins. Others watched with frank curiosity. A handful touched fingers to hearts in silent respect. They had seen him in the melee last night when Ghost dragged a mailed man from his saddle, and Jon carved him open with one stroke. Death, like lineage, inspired reverence. He spoke loud enough for all to hear. String light. Check fletchings. We move fast, 2 hours rest at midday, no more. A ripple of acknowledgement passed through the ranks. Jon turned, Ghost trailing without noise. Near the supply wagons, Pate the courser smith's boy called out, "Mord, message came on your black bird." He thrust a small parchment. The seal was blank red wax. Someone had scoured it smooth. Jon snapped the ribbon, unfolding a single line scratched in angular hand. "Reed at Greywater awaits the marsh tide. Bring only the faithful. Howland Reed." Proof. The ghost of Ned Stark's last living companion from the Tower of Joy. Jon's pulse quickened. If Howland would speak openly, every great lord south of Moat Cailin would have to reckon with that witness. But Greywater Watch drifted like a barge through the neck's labyrinthine bogs. Reaching it now risked months lost while the war turned. He folded the note, tucking it into his jerkin. Later. The time would come. For now, Harrenhal. Tywin's shadow loomed too large. By late morning the host rolled southward, mud sucking at wheel rims, horses snorting with each ragged mile. A veil of mist clung to the earth, curling around legs and hooves, until men seemed half-dissolved specters trudging towards some unknowable fate. Jon rode beside Robb again after the midday halt. They spoke little. Words felt scarce as dry timber in the sodden flats. Later, perhaps days, perhaps in another lifetime, they might laugh about frostbite training in Winterfell's yard, about Benjen's slow smile over mulled wine, about Bran's shrill delight upon mastering reins. But not now. Near dusk, they crested a low ridge and saw Harrenhal's blackened ramparts, carved against storm-gray sky. Towers melted and sagging like candles, left too long in the sun. Lightning flickered behind its ruinous bulk. Thunder soon followed, a ponderous boom that rattled the ribs. Robb lifted a gloved fist, halting the column. Scouts spurred forward. Hallis Hornwood, Dacy Mormont, the Crannog archer Jojen called Bogbane, vanishing into the tall yellow reeds edging the God's Eye. Minutes crawled. Rain began again, first as needles, then as nails, pinging off helms and greaves. When Jojen returned, his face was pale as bone beneath green hood. Ravens roost but no banners fly. Gate stands open like a throat cut wide. The lion has fled. Fled. Robb echoed. To King's Landing. More like east, my lord, Jojen answered. Tracks heavy toward the Blackwater Road. But there's worse. Woods smell of burned men. Cleggin's curs, perhaps. Betty. Robb's jaw tightened. We still take the castle. If leaves but ash. We shelter behind stone. They advanced cautiously. Jon felt Harrenhal's presence long before he passed inside. The walls seemed to breathe damp heat, each pock-marked block exhaling ghosts of Aegon's fires. The gates stood indeed ajar, chains swinging listlessly. Inside the outer yard, flies swarmed a charred heap that once had been men. Flayed, many. Disemboweled, some. Heads stacked like rough cairns around a blackened post, where a crude sign read, "Heretics in the Eyes of Fire." A low murmur rippled among the northern ranks. Jon felt bile rise, but forced it down. Robb slid from his saddle, gray wind at heel. Together, they walked to the stake. Karstark spat. Clegane's work, or Vargo Hoat's goats. Robb shook his head. No. See the leech marks? And look. The scorch follows a single pattern, Melisandre. Jon crouched, brushing soot off one corpse. The man's chest bore a crude stag carved with hot iron. Flesh bubbled and split. He thought of the leeches on Dragonstone. The names whispered. Joffrey, Robb, Jon. She tried to bleed victory, Jon muttered, but found only servants. They bled for Stannis' vanity, Robb said. voice trembling with restrained anger. "My father warned that warlords who thrust faith into men's hearts with a sword seldom stop at enemies." Edmure stepped near. "Castle's ours. We stable horses, patch wounds, send outriders along every road. Then decide." No. That night, torchlight danced on cracked marble floors, while Sir Brynden Tully surveyed dragon-melted vaults for ambush holes. Jon found a small chamber overlooking the moonlit lake beyond. It smelled of wet moss and decayed straw, but had a shuttered window and a half-whole hearth. He slung his cloak over a rafter, kindled coals with tinder he carried. Ghost curled upon tattered rushes like a silent sentinel. He sat cross-legged, palm open around the parchment from reed. Across the scattered flames the ink seemed to shimmer. Greywater awaits. The faithful. A knock. He rose, drawing the bar. Catelyn Stark stood hooded, her cheeks wind-burned, hair wild. Behind her Edmure lingered, but she dismissed him with a nod. He left reluctantly, soft footfalls fading. "May I speak?" she asked. Jon stepped aside. She entered, drawing her cloak close. The hearth's faint glow framed her face, lines deeper since Riverrun, eyes hollow with some grief he could not heal. "You fought today," she said after a beat. "We marched and found no fight." "No fight? These men," she gestured toward the walls. "They were men once. Burned before we came," Jon answered quietly. "Yet tomorrow you will kill more? And more after that." "Yes." He did not try to soften it. She removed her gloves, hands trembling. "I wish you had stayed at the wall." Jon bowed his head. "So did I. I've prayed for you." Her voice broke. "Prayed you would vanish into snow and silence, that my heart might forget my shame. Now I pray different prayers, that the truth you carry does not destroy my son." "I would sooner die than betray Robb," Jon said, perhaps too harshly. "You must know." Her gaze softened, but remained wary. "Do you seek the Iron Throne?" "I seek an end to lies," he said. "If that path rises to a crown, I fear what it may cost." "Fear enough for all." She reached to touch his shoulder, then withdrew her hand at the last. "That is the first answer I could trust." She turned toward the door. "Reed's riders reached us tonight. They will meet Robb near Moat Cailin in 10 days. Make certain you stand there." 10 days, he repeated. "When you meet him, bring steel. Truth sharper than swords. Because the phrase will come, the Boltons too, and each will measure their gain in your blood." Menderoso. She left without another word. 10 days proved a race against storm and shadow. Harrenhal's ovens forged fresh arrowheads. Scullions scoured larders under Roose Bolton's cold gaze. He had chosen to garrison, freeing Robb's main body to march. Jon's archers took the southern gate while snow melted in the midday sun, filling the moat with black water stinking of iron. On the third dawn, Robb's outriders captured a rider wearing Tywin's colors, bearing sealed orders commissioning Sir Adden Marbrand to harry Robb's flank. Robb burned the scroll before campfire sparks. "We move faster," he said, "and we bleed slower." So they rode at night, slept at dusk, pressed through villages half empty of men yet brimming with frightened women and hollow-eyed children who stared at the deerwolves with parted lips. Some knelt as they passed. Others made the sign of the 7-pointed star or spat to ward bad fortune. When they reached the first marsh of the neck proper, the world shrank to narrow causeways and slow drizzles. Rotting trees, draped with ghost-gray lichen, stood knee-deep in tannin-black water. Insects buzzed thick. Frogs croaked. Will-o'-wisps winked blue between reeds. Horses balked at uncertain footing. More than once a cartwheel slid off the path and the wagon lurched until men heaved and levered it back onto slick planks. Jon remembered riding north to the wall years ago. How vast the moors felt. How tiny his horse beneath that sky. Now the marsh's damp hush pressed close as a cloak. Ghost padded easily along the dikes, sometimes disappearing and reappearing yards ahead, white fur luminous under clouded moon. Near midnight of the 8th day, Jon rode Scouting Point with Bogbane, the Crannog archer whose whispery voice seemed born from wet grass. "The watch moves," Bogbane murmured, pointing with an arrow shaft. Across a sheet of water, lanterns glimmered. First one, then ahead to the right. Another. They traced a curve, marking an invisible perimeter. Gray water? Jon asked. Bogbane nodded. Drifts here tonight. Could drift away by dawn. Bem. And Reed waits for the Wolf King and his white wolf. Jon signaled the rear. Within an hour Robb, Catelyn, and a dozen selected lords approached by foot, leaving armor and sigils behind. The night swallowed color. Even gray wind seemed but a deeper shape slinking through cane. They came to a small rise where peat formed a drier bar. Ahead, moonlit fog parted to reveal a low, timber-ribbed hall, perched atop a thick raft of reeds and tree trunks. Wooden ramparts ringed its deck. Orange torch flames flickered between logs. Atop the gate a gray-green banner hung limp, tall reeds crossing over a black peaty pool. Howland Reed met them on the walkway, frog spears strapped across his back. He looked scarcely older than Robb, though his eyes held centuries. Pale, alert, judging. Swamp crickets sang while the two men clasped forearms. "Welcome, King in the North," Reed said. "The marsh remembers the wolves of Winterfell." He turned to Jon. "And welcomes a prince born of blood and hidden water." Jon bowed. "I remember you as father's quiet friend, sitting far at feasts." Reed smiled thinly. "Quiet men carry the loudest truths." Inside the hall, its chamber acrid with peat smoke and stew rich with bog herbs, Reed unfurled a bundle of yellowed parchments, sealed with a sigil none present recognized. A slim tower over bruised blue roses. "Septon's record of the wedding," he said. "Signed by Rhaegar Targaryen, Lyanna Stark, and Septon Barthanas Mooton. Witnessed by myself and Sir Arthur Dayne." Karstark drew in breath. "Arthur Dayne? The Sword of the Morning?" "Sir Arthur died for his oath," Reed answered. "But first he laid his visor at Rhaegar's feet, and named the prince's act righteous before gods and men." Catelyn reached, but hesitated, as though the scroll might bite. "If these records are true, you have broken silence sworn to Lord Eddard." "I kept my vow until the pact needed truth more than secrecy," said Reed. Ned believed in ice, unyielding and unforgiving. Yet even ice cracks to spring. The realm's spring is late, and wolves bleed. Robb unfolded the scroll with care. The ink was faded, but legible. No ordinary copy. This bore blood-red flourishes at each margin. And the High Septon's formal concluding words. "Let those who scorn this union answer before both seven and old." Silence filled the hall. Someone's breath shuddered. Ed Muir, perhaps, or one of Reed's marshmen gripping spear hafts like anchors. Catelyn closed her eyes. "Lyanna. Gods." Robb's voice broke softly. "We will bear this banner when we ride. The world will choose, truth or comfortable lie." Jon placed his hand atop the scroll. "Not yet." All eyes turned. "Why?" Karstark asked, bristling. "With this, Tywin's paper crown shreds. Because crowns mean nothing if winter burns the north first," Jon said. He spoke fast, firm. "The watch sent ravens from the fist. Walkers march. I saw their eyes, blue as cracked ice, the night I took my vows." He looked to Reed. "Your marsh can slow them not at all." Reed inclined his head. "What stirs beyond the wall chills even the Bog Queen's blood." "Then our war is against dead things," Jon continued, "and living men both. Reveal my claim now, and Stannis attacks us to prove his own. Tywin attacks to crush rebellion. The Reach may ride to whichever banner promises roses. We'll bleed away each sword needed for the wall." "Men?" Robb frowned. "If not now, when? When we have an alliance broad enough to fight on two fronts. Who would join wolves and dragons both?" Catelyn asked, voice low. "Perhaps a dragon across the sea," Jon said. "Perhaps Dorne, who lost princess and prince to Lannister steel. Perhaps the Reach if we prove Joffrey baseborn. But not yet." Karstark's teeth flashed. "Idle talk. The North pledges fealty to no sellsword queen." "Them?" Jon met his eyes. "Then perhaps the North perishes proud and alone." The words hung razor sharp. "But," Reed cleared his throat, The pack chooses. He tapped the parchment. Do we loose this wind or conceal its howl? Robb turned to Catelyn first. Mother and son exchanged unspoken words. She nodded. Tears bright. He looked then to each lord in turn. Karstark's scowl deepened, but he nodded once. Mage Mormont crossed arms and grunted assent. Edmure studied the ceiling, sighed, but raised a hand. Greatjon gave a booming laugh. Ha! Keep the secret locked in the reeds. A tale for winter fires after the fighting. Robb faced Jon. We wait. Until wall and throne can be fought in single stroke. A fragile pact, sealed by torchlit silence. Greywater Watch drifted north again by sunrise, leaving Robb's host to slog back along the causeway toward the King's Road. They aimed east of the Neck, then south along wooded slopes where hill clans ambushed trappers for winter stores. Summer now, yet the nights tasted of frost already. One evening, as stars pricked black velvet sky, Jon dreamed of a weirwood in a forest of glass. Its face bled tears that turned to shards. When he woke, ghost whined soft and distant thunder echoed from the north. On the sixth morning, crows wheeled over an inn at the crossroads where smoke curled from collapsed roofs. Gray-clad riders sprawled like rag dolls between overturned wagons bearing hay, wheat, barley. The walls were daubed with crimson words. We pay the iron price. Greyjoy, Robb muttered, kneeling by a dead man whose throat was raw rope. Jon crouched. Not ironborn. He fingered a broken arrow. Goosefeather fletching dyed blue. Bolton hunters. Robb's eyes narrowed. My bannerman. Your bannerman's bastard, Jon said. Ramsay Snow. Meg Mormont growled deep. Dogs flay alike, whether lion or kraken. Robb rose. Gather their dead, burn them. We ride dusk and dawn. Bolton's answer will come later. But anger simmered beneath his calm. Jon felt the tremor when Robb mounted, hands tight on reins. The march quickened. Edmure's outriders returned with news of Lannister reserve forces regrouping near King's Road mileposts, blocking the way to Sear Road. Eris Oakheart rode in from Bitterbridge with rumors that Renly's former knights now massed behind Margaery Tyrell's brother Garland, who courted alliance with King's Landing to avenge Renly's green ghost. The board was shifting faster than ravens could fly. On the 12th night since Greywater, a storm smashed campfires flat. Tents collapsed. Horses screamed. Lightning split a great oak, sending flaming shards skittering through wet grass. Jon and Robb found themselves holding the central pavilion pole upright, while water poured down its sides in sheets. Deerwolves circled snarling, snapping at thunder. Laughing through the chaos, Robb shouted, "If we must bow to any power, let it be the sky." Rain ran in streams down his cheeks. Jon grinned despite himself, mud rising past ankles. For one heartbeat the war peeled away, and they were boys again wrestling in Winterfell's courtyard as a summer storm pounded the towers. The tent finally surrendered, canvas ripping free. They stood exposed to the heavens, army, king, prince, and wolves alike, while the storm raged like a god gone mad. Morning dawned calm, a strange hush overlaying the sodden field, as though the storm had swallowed every bird call. Catelyn found Jon kneeling by a puddle, washing mud from Longclaw's pommel. There was a bird at first light, she said. Jon rose. Bad tidings? She handed the scroll. A single ribbon of fray blue dangled. His gut tightened. He unrolled the rain-spotted parchment. Robb Stark, King of the North. Be it known my household is aggrieved. My daughter Roslyn weeps for betrayal. The promise of marriage given then shrugged like wet cloak. Our crossing stands on pride as much as stone. Nag us no longer to hazard my sons for wolves chasing lions. No Frey banner shall fly at your back until satisfaction is sworn. Walder Frey, Lord of the Crossing. Jon closed his eyes. The twins, the neck of the North's only sure path, now closed. Catelyn sighed. I feared this. Robb and Jane, Jon began. My son followed his heart, she said softly, as men of 18 often do. The cost may be more hearts broken. How many lords will follow if Frey withholds? Some will weigh risk, she admitted. Her gaze fell on the sword at Jon's hip. Perhaps a royal wager might tilt scales. He frowned. A marriage bond, she explained. Not to a Frey, they would see it as mockery, but to some house able to bridge north and south. I will not wed for banners. His voice chilled. I have vows. Bastards' vows. Night's watch, he snapped. Ghost stirred with a low growl. I swore to hold no lands, father no sons, wear no crown. But you have already broken one oath, she said, meaning his presence here. He bit back challenge. When the wall falls, oaths perish with it. Her shoulders sagged. Then may the gods guide us. She turned away, leaving him with that bitter taste in his mouth. That evening Robb assembled his corps commanders. A crude map scratched in dirt showed their stalled route. River crossings held by Frey. Causeways choked by Bolton men whom Roose disavowed yet never punished. Lannister outriders probing from west. They were pinned. Jon listened, silent at the edge. Ideas batted back and forth. Break for White Harbor and sail. Feint toward Seaguard. Slip through bogs and appear at Maidenpool. Each plan faltered on numbers. Wounded, supply carts, the Karstark regiments still sulking after Jaime's capture. When torches guttered low and voices frayed, Jon cleared his throat. I will go to White Harbor, he said. Eyes turned. A small escort, 20 at most. From there a ship to Eastwatch. I plead the Watch's cause, muster what men I can, then ride hard for the wall. Robb's mouth opened, shut. Alone? Ghost will go. Karstark snorted. Abandon our king to chase dead man tales. Jon met his glare. If the dead cross the wall, the tale will chase you to your hearths. I go. Now. Robb exhaled out his nose. And what of the claim you harbor? Walkers won't heed lineage. If you fall, every proof we gather dies. Jon touched the leather satchel at his belt. I leave copies with you. And with Lord Reed, grey water drifts but seldom sinks. The truth will out, Catelyn said softly. Sons of Stark do not flee war, nor do they forget duty, Jon answered, gentler than before. I have two callings now. One is here. He tapped his heart. The other stands upon the wall's stones, staring into darkness. Silence returned. Thunder rumbled faint through clouds. Finally, Robb nodded. Take whom you need. Return swift. And if White Harbor's masts prove too few, bring warning by raven at least. Karstark rose, glowered, but did not speak. The Grey Jon clapped Jon's shoulder, nearly toppling him. Kill some whites for me, he said with a grin. Jon found himself smiling back despite fear. They set out at dawn. Jon, Ghost, 6 good bowmen from Tall Heart's ranks, a pair of spearmen whose families hailed near Barrowton, and Sir Helman, who refused to let his prince ride without mailed guardian. The main host cheered their departure with muted horns and raised torches. Robb embraced Jon before he mounted. Give my regards to Uncle Benjen when you find him, Robb said, voice thick. I will, Jon replied, though both knew the odds of finding Benjen alive had dwindled with each passing moon. Grey wind touched noses with Ghost. Deer wolves parted with low whines. Then the small company turned northeast, leaving banners and drums behind as they slipped back into the neck. The first 2 days passed uneventful, save for midges and bogcats stalking at dusk. But on the third dawn, a white raven descended from gray sky, alighting on Jon's gauntlet. Its message bore Maester Luwin's familiar hand, yet every letter seemed to tremble. Robb fallen at the twins. Betrayal. Frey steel. Bolton knife. River run lost. Stark banners sundered. Come home if ye can. Winterfell burns. Jon stared, every heartbeat a hammer. Ghost's howl tore across the marsh like souls riven from flesh. The men exchanged horrified glances. Sir Helman breathed a prayer. Jon reread each ragged loop. Frey steel. Bolton knife. Winterfell burns. He saw Robb's grin in the rain, heard his vow. Ride with me. And now. He bent over his saddle, grief stabbing so sharp he might have bled. Yet beneath grief, fire sparked. Betrayal. Wolves slaughtered in a dining hall. Mother, brother, bannerman, all slain while music played. Jon lifted his head. The breeze carried pine resin and decay, but also something colder. Ice singing deep within. He crumpled the parchment, fed it to a flame, watched ash spiral skyward. "Sir?" Hellman asked. "We turn east." Jon's voice sounded like someone else. Quiet steel. "We hold to Reed's another day, then cross at Saltspear and take ship as planned." The wall still calls. But Robb is gone. He swallowed, ghost pressing to his leg. But Robb's war is not. "Bolton will want me dead, Frey too. The wall is our refuge until we muster allies strong enough to avenge the north." The tall hard archers drew closer. "We follow," said one. Jon met each gaze, saw fear and fury roiling equal. "Then we ride silent. No fires tonight." They set off, water splashing under hooves. Far behind them the neck lay still, but Jon imagined he could hear drums at the twins, hear Walder Frey's brittle laugh, hear Bolton's soft, precise footsteps moving towards some darker purpose. Night fell heavy. Stars hid. Ghost scouted ahead. A pale wraith flickering between twisted pines. Jon reached inside his jerkin, fingers brushing Reed's scroll. Proof of who he was, proof of what those betrayers had slain. More than ever, the truth burned. He would carry it to the wall, to Stannis, and to every realm that would hear. He would gather wildlings and black brothers, free lords and broken men, and when the long night loomed, they would fight together. Then, when dawn came, if dawn came, he would turn south, and Bolton's dread banners would fall, and Frey towers crumble, and the Iron Throne itself would crack beneath dragon-forged justice. But first, the wall. He urged his horse faster through the gloom. Rain began again, cold needles on his cheeks. Mixing with tears he did not wipe away. Above, thunder rumbled like the footsteps of giants, and somewhere far off a horn call drifted. A single long note, mournful, that carried through bog and hill alike. Jon Snow, bastard no longer, did not look back. Okay. The wind rose out of the bogs behind them like a living thing, pushing mist along their heels as Jon's small column threaded narrower tracks toward the Saltspear. Stunted willows scraped the starless sky. Thick mats of water Heather tugged at fetlock and bootlace alike. No birds called. Every splash of hoof or creak of leather seemed magnified against the hush. A hush that felt somehow expectant, as if the very air waited to see which heartbeat would fail first. They traveled mostly in single file. Jon at the fore, Ghost loping yards ahead, then Sir Helman Tallheart, then the 6 archers and 2 spearmen, mouths bound in rags against the marsh gnats. Each man had received the news of the twins in his own manner. One archer wept quietly for an hour. Another swore vengeance until his voice cracked. The spearmen crossed themselves before every mile marker, and Sir Helman rode in near silence, save for the low murmurs of prayer that occasionally slipped unbidden between clenched teeth. On the second night after the Raven, they reached the Saltspear's reed-choked banks. Flood tide hid the regular crossing, forcing them south until they found an abandoned flatboat half submerged, its ropes slick with algae. 3 hours and 20 whispered curses later, they ferried men and horses across in groups of 4, the boat barely staying above water under the combined weight of saddles, packs, and grief. By dawn, land rose firmer beneath their soles. The neck gave way to rolling pine barrens. Salt winds swept and stinking faintly of sea. Here, marsh grass yielded to pale coastal sedge. Gulls circled overhead, mewling as if in mockery of their burden. Somewhere to the east, waves hammered a rocky shore. Jon inhaled that brine-sharp air and felt something inside him unclench. Grief still pulsed with every heartbeat, but the promise of wide water seemed to stretch his lungs, letting them remember there had once been spaces broader than betrayal. They pressed northeast for 3 more days, avoiding King's Road mileposts and lighting fires only beneath rocky overhangs, where flames sputtered, but smoke vanished up stone chimneys. At a crumbling watchtower built when the Marsh King bent knee to Winterfell, Jon found ancient runes scratched in the lintel. Iron swords crossed beneath a direwolf's head. He brushed away lichen and whispered a vow that the next blood spilled beneath that badge would belong to traitors alone. On the 6th evening, distant lights flickered across wet flats. Willowport, last hamlet before White Harbor. A smell of fish smoke lay thick. They skirted the thatched huts at a trot, spooking a pack of ragged sheepdogs that yapped in futile pursuit. Beyond, the glowwater rushed in tidal breaths. In its dark mirror, they glimpsed White Harbor's high seawall lantern, a steady red-gold beacon beckoning travelers home. At the outer earthwork, they were hailed by crossbowmen in green and gray mantles. Jon reined his horse beneath the torchlit parapet. As the guard shouted for names, Ghost stalked forward and stared up, eyes glowing in the flare's light. One glimpse of that pale giant had bows lowering quick enough to clack against stone. Within minutes, a gate every bit as white as the city's name yawned open, groaning on iron gears seldom used since the Greyjoy Wars. An escort of Manderly sergeants led them along wide cobbles, glistening with brine, past salt warehouses and ropey walks, where early laborers paused mid-knot to stare at the black-cloaked riders. Salt pennants snapped overhead. The smell of smoked cod mingled with tar and sea kelp. Sun was just cresting over the bight, painting the harbor pink when they halted before the new keep. Inside the audience chamber, banners of blue merman on sea-green silk drooped in the still air. Lord Wyman Manderly, vast as the legends claimed, his chin's handfuls of white beard, waited upon a cushioned dais. Though his feet were swollen beyond booting, his eyes were clear and sharp. Jon Snow. Lord Wyman's voice rolled like surf on a shingle bank. They told me a wolf prince rode with fire in his blood. Yet you come garbed in crow black. Which brother stands before me, the Night's Watch Ranger, or the Dragon's heir? Jon bowed, ghost at heel. A bastard raised at Winterfell who fled his vows only to keep them better, my lord. I carry a warning first, and only afterwards my name. Speak then. Wyman's meaty hand waved away retainers. The hall emptied save for a few elderly knights, and Wyman's younger son, Sir Wendell, broad-shouldered and apple-cheeked yet solemn today. Jon told them of wildlings fleeing from shadows, of walkers stalking the fist, of black brothers butchered in blue fire. He spoke of ravens gone unreturned, of Maester Aemon's trembling script, begging the realm's lords for glass and steel. He told them at last of the Red Wedding. By the end his voice trembled even as he fought to keep it steady. Wyman listened without interruption, the only sound his slow breathing. When Jon fell silent, the Lord of White Harbor reached for a carafe, poured chilled sweet water into a cup carved from pearl. He sipped, swallowing thoughtfully. Twice I sent envoys to the twins with grain and coin, he said at length. Twice old Walder charged tolls fit to ransom queens. Now I regret we did not bring him salt pork larded with poison instead. My prince, the word hung heavy in the hush. What aid do you require? Jon straightened. We need a stout ship swift enough to beat autumn storms, one that can bear 30 men and stores to Eastwatch. I'll send those sailors back to you with every able body the watch can spare, if we survive the crossing. Then so. Crossing the bight, you mean? Wyman set aside his pearl cup. Eastwatch sits closer by sea than Castle Black by road, it's true. But storms will build, and Lannister galleys nose north from Gulltown. Still, he tapped sausage-thick fingers on the arm of his chair. Lord Walder's treachery offends every law, and Bolton's insult stings deeper. Manderly blood was sworn to Stark blood long before the conquest. He caught Jon's gaze and held it. Sworn still, though the knife severed one branch. I lost a son at the twins, gutted like boar in the feast tents. Yet Frey denied me the body. My grief burns as yours does, Prince Jon. If Eastwatch calls, White Harbor answers. Jon released a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Thank you, my lord. 1 ship. 2, if weather holds. My own flagship's keel sits deeper than Eastwatch's breakers allow, or I would send it. Instead, you'll take the Unicorn and the Mary's Mercy, crews sworn to my house, brave enough to face krakens themselves if need be. Provision within 2 days. Rest your men meanwhile. They row soon enough. Sir Helman voiced gratitude. The archers murmured thanks. Jon bowed again, but Wyman's hand lifted. Sit, boy. There remains the question of your claim. Secrets never stay drowned. Sooner or later some current bears them up. At my harbor many tongues wag. Jon seated himself on the edge of a bench, ghost curling at his knees. I keep no secret where allies are concerned. But neither do I bandy words that ignite civil war while winter's jaws gape wide. When the wall is safe, when the north stands free of treachery's rot, then perhaps I will face the south with proof. Menendero. Wyman's eyebrows climbed. Prudent. Yet you travel with parchment that may discredit every Baratheon. Lose your life at sea and Tywin Lannister sleeps easier. Copies lie with Howland Reed. Ah, that bog frog survives everything. Manderly chuckled. A low wave rumble. Very well. Ships you shall have. But one more gift besides. He beckoned Sir Wendell, who strode forward and knelt. Head bent. My son, continued Wyman, sails as your sword and shield. White Harbor could spare 20 knights and their squires. None would serve you better than Wendell. He wields an axe, where some men wield an orchard, and his spirit is as unbending as the merman's trident. Menendero. Sir Rendell's apple cheeks flushed red, but he met Joan's eyes with open sincerity. I'll not fail you, my prince. The watch will need hearty bellies. I bring them manderly fish and bread. Jon clasped the knight's forearm. We welcome you. From there, generous gestures flowed as easily as sweet water. Dried river trout and smoked eel, casks of sea coal, oiled sails and tallow lanterns, even 2 heavy wagons of obsidian daggers turned by manderly masons from ancient sea glass washed onto Skagos beaches. Wyman handed one to Jon, black as midnight, edges sharp enough to whisper when they touched air. I recall old tales. The Lord murmured. Dragonstone forged such weapons in Valyria's prime. We saved this trove for some nameless doom. Seems doom found its name. Menendero. That night Jon's party feasted in a lesser hall reserved for ship's captains. There was smoked haddock and horseradish cream, pepper-crusted venison, honeyed beets, and crusts soaked in garlicky crab broth. Sir Wendell regaled them with boasts, but laughter never rose far. Each cup raised to Robb and Catelyn and Grey Wind returned to lips clattering from grief's chill. After the third toast, Jon stepped outside, leaving warmth for the salt-stained chill. Ghost followed. Moonlight silvered the harbor. Ships swayed at anchor, masts scribbling pale runes across the night sky. Somewhere out there, tomorrow, they would embark toward Eastwatch. Jon leaned on the seawall parapet. He tried to remember Robb's last smile, but memory blurred with storm rain and torch smoke. He remembered instead his little sister Arya perched on Winterfell's stable fence, shouting at him to teach her to shoot. He remembered Bran's wide eyes as he clung to a roof edge, Rickon's laugh chasing Shaggy Shagadog round the godswood. Winterfell burns. Could it truly? He had seen the smoke of distant villages, but Winterfell's walls were stone thick as history itself. Yet ravens seldom lied. Jon pressed fists to cold stone. He had carried the truth of his birth like smoldering coal, fearing it would ignite worlds. Now worlds burned regardless. Perhaps, he thought, truth is not a coal waiting for breath, but a blade that will cut whether wielded or not. Better the wielder be his own hand. Footsteps behind. He turned to see Sir Helman approaching. The knight stopped a pace away, eyes reflecting harbor glow. I owe you apology, Helman said, voice quiet. At Red Fork I called your claim a rumor. When Bolton's raven spoke of Robb dead, my first thought was that your dragon's blood would drown us. Then I watched you hold these men together while their hearts cracked. That is lordship. Jon let out a long breath. Holding them is what Robb did. I'm only filling the space he left. Fill it then. The North will need shape to pour grief into. The older man glanced seaward. We ship within 24 hours. Storm builds beyond Skagos. Manderley pilots say we must outrun it. Jon nodded. We'll row through night if we must. Helman clasped his shoulder and left. Jon listened to his fading footfalls, then returned his gaze to dark waves. In the east, clouds pulsed with distant lightning like silent drums. He whispered a prayer he had not voiced since leaving the wall. Words to nameless gods of night, asking them to carry him home. Morning broke pale and anxious. Gulls screeched overhead, diving for offal thrown from wharves. The Unicorn's decks bustled with pigeons and swearing sailors heaving crates of black stone up the gangway. The Mary's Mercy had already cast off, floating down tide beyond the sea gate to await the flagship. Sir Rendell strode about with a manifest, bawling orders with cheerful vigor that almost sparked smiles. Jon met the Unicorn's captain, a skeletal man called Black Miles for his pitch-dark beard and black amber rings. He greeted Jon with elaborate courtesy, but his sardonic eyes assessed every detail. The direwolf, the sealskin satchel of documents, the Night's Watch cloak pulled over northern mail. Be forewarned, my lord of black and white, Black Miles said while gulls shrieked overhead. Autumn gales funnel through the bight, as though the mother herself labors to birth a storm. We'll keep west wind shoals to starboard. But even so, seas will slap boards, till your teeth rattle. Pray to whichever god claims you. I have more trust in your seamanship than the gods, Captain, Jon answered. Miles barked a laugh. Best you do. He took the helm once all were aboard, shouted to cast lines, and the Unicorn slipped her moorings. Manderley horn trumpets boomed farewell from the seawall. Jon looked back at White Harbor's pale towers shrinking against green hills. He was leaving the last sure holdfast between him and everything he feared. Yet the water ahead called with cold clarity. Day faded beneath roiling gray. By mid-afternoon the wind had swung east-northeast and salted the air. Sails strained, ropes groaned. Waves higher than a horse's shoulders battered prow and stern alike. The smaller Mary's Mercy vanished at times behind white peaks. Sailors cursed and prayed in the same breath. Sir Wendell braced at forecastle yelling encouragement, his laughter booming each time spray drenched him. Ghost prowled deck silently, body swaying with roll. Unsettling crew who crossed themselves or muttered old tongue charms. Jon spent hours by the rail, clutching obsidian daggers inside oilskin. Seasickness clawed, but he would not bend. When night crushed day to charcoal, the world shrank to starlight and crash of water. A half-moon slipped between rags of cloud, limning foam, silver. Past midnight, a shout tore down from the crow's nest. Lanterns, dead ahead. 3 of Inyim low. Black Miles spun the rudder. Oars, half. Silence, damn you. Quickly the Unicorn's bow lanterns were doused. The Mary's Mercy faded to a black silhouette. All hands strained to peer into darkness. Sure enough, faint gleams winked across waves. Too low for merchantmen, too steady for fishermen. Galleys, Jon thought, rowing without sails, hunting. Lannisters, Sir Rendell whispered, hand gripping his axe. Or pirates, fat off Lannister coin, Black Miles growled. Either way we slipped them. The captain ordered minimal canvas. Oars dipped with hush. For 2 hours, they hugged the shoals, threading labyrinthine sandbars known only to harbor pilots. Light fog seeped from the water's surface, cloaking them in shifting gray. Lanterns behind fell distant, then vanished altogether. At dawn, pale fire-tinged clouds. Black Miles allowed a single sail. The ship sped into calmer swells. Crew exhaled as one. Jon felt tension ease from his spine, though sleep eluded him. He leaned on rail until his cloak soaked, watching Mary's Mercy reappear far astern, small and steadfast. 2 more days of hard sailing brought them within sight of Skagos' jagged outline, snow-fringed even now. Seals barked on rocky spits. Whales breached in the far distance. The sea here rolled deeper, darker. On the evening of the 3rd day, Gray clouds parted long enough to reveal a slender sliver of coastline bending northeast. The fingers of the east coast. Beyond that, Eastwatch. Night again. The storm that had stalked them now pounced. Thunderheads roared overhead. Swells rose like black ramparts. Even Miles' orders carried a hint of fear. Reef her down, sailors. Reef or shell rip free. Lightning split sky in jagged forks, illuminating the Mary's Mercy, one moment cresting high, the next plunging into a trough unseen. Jon lashed himself to a mast. Ghost crouched at his feet, white pelt plastered to skin by rain. Water smashed across deck, sending crates skidding. One cracked open to spill obsidian blades that clattered like midnight hail. Jon scrambled to gather what he could, hands numbed. A wave taller than the stern rose, hung monstrous in purple light, and crashed. The world became cold roar. He felt his body lifted, slammed. Water stole breath. Rope bit wrists. He glimpsed a sailor swept overboard, vanishing in churn. He shouted, but no sound reached ears. Everything thunder and blackness. Another wave, mast groaned, sail shredded. Lightning again. And he saw the Mary's Mercy rolling far to port. Listing dangerously. Rigged the storm jib. Miles bellowed. Bail to the pumps, keep her nose. His words drowned in wind. Hours ground on, timeless agony of lash and roll. Until at last the storm began to break. Rain eased. Wind fell from banshee shriek to weary moan. Dawn seeped tentative blue upon sullen clouds. The Unicorn, battered yet afloat, pitched toward a coastline of dark cliffs crowned by stone ramparts and a single tall tower bearing a watchfire of flickering orange. Eastwatch by the sea. Jon tasted tears and salt together. Behind, Mary's Mercy limped, one mast snapped, but still she lived. They would make harbor. Eastwatch's harbor was little more than a jumbled breakwater of ancient stone wharves, but teams of black-cloaked watchmen hurried to throw lines, voices ragged with wonder at the arrival of two large ships. Jon's party disembarked, some men dropping to all fours to kiss frozen planks. Jon knelt, then straightened, scanning the yard for known faces. A lanky steward hurried forward, bow-backed dolorous Ed Tollett, eyes sunken with sleeplessness. "Lord Jon," he said with gallows humor, "we laid out blankets and mutton pies, but the kitchen flooded last night, so hope you fancy saltwater stew." Jon clasped his shoulder. "I've missed your optimism, Ed." "It's all I have after Hope died," Ed replied. "Walkers at the gorge, raiders on the coast, and now giants back again. But hey, you brought a wolf bigger than most horses. That brightens the decor." Inside the Grimstone wardroom, Jon found Maester Harmune hunched over maps, while Sir Dinis Mallister argued with Cotter Pike about fortifying a ruined tower 3 miles inland. Samwell Tarly, grown thinner, lines at eyes, paced clutching scrolls. When Jon entered, Sam's face lit like sunrise. "You made it." Sam crossed and seized Jon's forearms. "We feared. Oh, the gods be good." Tears welled. Jon embraced him, then looked to the assembled officers. "The North burns," he said. "Frey and Bolton betrayed Robb Stark. Winterfell may be ash. But the wall still stands, and we brought blades that can kill the enemy." He poured obsidian daggers from his satchel. Black shards glittered. Murmurs rose around the table. Cotter Pike picked one up, whistling. "Obsidian won't feed ravens, but might shut up these dead things?" "It will," Sam affirmed. "I've seen it." Jon surveyed them. "How many men still hold Eastwatch?" 200 at full strength," Mallister answered. 102 with spear or bow. The rest scorbutic or wounded. Castle black? Pike grimaced. "Roughly 700 across the wall's length. Half sick, half lost hope." "We hold 1,000 then," Jon said. "Not enough." Mallister lifted a brow. "You sailed here to tell us what we know." "I sailed to bring allies." He gestured to Sir Wendell and his knights. "And to gather free folk beyond the wall who have bent knee to me before." Mallister stiffened. "Wildlings? You propose opening the gate?" I propose living men fight dead ones, Jon said. Mance Rayder marched his people south to escape the walkers. Many would join us if we treat them as people, not foes. They know the land, and they can fight. Cotter Pike shrugged. I'd rather share ale with a wildling than bleed out for a Southron king who never heard of me. Mallister's mouth twitched distaste. Lord Commander Jor Mormont dies, and this becomes rabble moot. Jon faced him. We have no commander. Election stalled. But we cannot bicker while the dead move. Maester Harmune asked, and who will lead? The room fell silent. Jon felt every gaze turn on him. Sam's hopeful, Pike's calculating, Mallister's conflicted. He straightened. My duty lies here, yet my name may rally the realm, if revealed. I cannot serve both tasks. Elect Denys Mallister or Cotter Pike, or choose a third. I will serve whomever you elect, but we act now. Mallister closed his eyes a moment, then spoke. You know the North? The wildlings? The blades to slay others. If ever a commander rose by necessity, not ambition, it may be you. I yield my voice. They. Pike grinned crooked. Well, I never liked bookkeeping. I yield my shit heap too. Seconded. Sam said softly. Harmune nodded. So noted. Jon's pulse hammered. Then by your leave, we muster. 3 weeks bled into each other like threads twisted under calloused thumbs. While carpenters shored Eastwatch's ice-stained battlements, Jon and Cotter Pike led sorties along the coast, collecting small fishing villages of free folk who had slipped south of the wall by boat. Sam drafted ravens to every lord still rumored loyal to House Stark. Carhold maybe, Bear Island likely, White Harbor always. Maester Harmune tested each obsidian dagger on graved white corpses brought down from the coast. Black glass pierced bone like cheese and burned the flesh to ashen ruin. Word spread that a true weapon had arrived. In Castle Black, however, fear gnawed. Mutineers from Craster's Keep, survivors who had fled after killing Lord Commander Mormont, crept back starving and raving, only to be clapped in chains. Food dwindled. Men quarreled over horsemeat stews. Ghost's presence did little to soothe tension. A dire wolf prowling corridors was omen enough of storms to come. 2 moons after Jon's arrival, the first true assault came. White winds howled down the shivering sea, driving ice floes against the wall's east buttress. Drums like distant thunder rolled from forests north. The giants had returned, accompanied by throngs of wights and walkers, gleaming eyes like shards of moon-studded gloom. Jon stood upon the wall alongside Pike and Mallister, hair crackling with frost when the enemy appeared. Tall outlines moving slow yet inexorable, skeletal horses dragging frozen siege timbers. With them walked a figure in armor of translucent blue, crowned by horns of frost. Spear, projecting pale fire. A walker lord. The watch's trebuchets creaked, launching barrels of pitch that burst in blue-orange roar. But fire sputtered under sleet. Giant-flung boulders shattered sections of parapet. One watch ranger tumbled screaming into the abyss. Jon yelled orders, sending archers to slots filled with obsidian-tipped arrows. He saw the first arrow strike a walker waist. The creature burst like crystal under hammer blow, shards scattering in luminous spray. A cheer rose, but died as the foe pressed on. Ghost paced behind Jon, hackles high. The dire wolf's eyes glowed red against white gloom. When a scaled wight scrambled onto the ice stairs, Ghost leapt, jaw-crushing spine with one snap, then hurled the corpse over the edge. All-night battle raged, arrows sang, ice cracked, horns sounded thrice and thrice again. At dawn, gray light revealed a plain, littered with shattered bones, and frozen giants sprawled like toppled towers. Yet more dead forms crawled beyond treeline, rising with the sunless day. Jon knew this repulse would not stand long. He convened Mallister, Pike, Sam, Harmune and Wendell in the war room, map candle lit. We cannot win by walls alone, he began. We strike north, burn Weeper's Ridge, rescue free folk trapped at Frostfang Pass, and find Mance Rayder. If he lives, we ally. If dead, we find Tormund Giantsbane. Mallister rubbed weary eyes. A sortie into that storm is madness. Madness or doom both, Jon replied. But obsidian in our hands turns madness to chance. We go. Cotter Pike straightened. Give me 50 and I'll cut throats until I bleed ice. Jon shook head. They know your smell, Cotter. Mine too. We need one they don't expect. He turned to Sir Wendell. The Manderley knight blinked. Ice never tasted fish before. Lead the first wave, Jon said. I follow with reinforcements. Wendell's grin returned. So be it. A merman may not swim in snow, but will surf it. And now, that night, under veiled stars, 36 men descended the wall by cage and rope ladder into a world of brittle hush. Snow squeaked under leather. They skirted half-frozen bogs, crossing silvered glades hushed by drifting flake, and broken only by ghost silent passage ahead. Sir Wendell's axe hung in his fist. Obsidian barbs tipped every arrow they carried. An hour before dawn they clambered over a low ridge and found fires flickering in the lee. Wildling survivors, rag-bundled, huddled around scrawny flames, mothers clutching babes shriveled by cold. Wendell signaled halt. Jon stepped forward, hood drawn back, empty hands lifted. I am Jon Snow, he called softly, voice hoarse in brittle air. Former ranger, friend to Ygritte of the Thens. Sworn brother to Corin Halfhand. I know your fear. The wall is open to living men and women. Come with us and fight beside us. Spears quivered uncertain. A scarred woman with one eye pushed forward. Stark bastard, she hissed. We heard you join the Crow Lords. I joined the living, he replied. Will you? A hush. Then a tall man with a beard iced white cocked his head. You know Mance. If he lives, we will find him. If not, we make new songs. The tall man slammed spearbutt to ground. I named Jon Snow the horn that blows dawn. I seen the dead rise. I will fight. One by one the wildlings lowered weapons. Children peeked from skins. Old men wept silently. Jon's rangers moved among them distributing flatbread, throwing furs over shivering shoulders. Overhead, dawn's first bleak light seeped, revealing smoke curls above Frostfang Pass, Mance Raiders' last known camp. Wendell approached Jon, expressions caught between awe and mirth. You charm them like minstrels charm coin. Jon shrugged. They need hope more than orders. They guided the column back, but snow began to fall heavy, and soon flakes thickened to coins, then plates. Paths vanished. One false step meant plunging into crevasse. Behind, faint screeches echoed. Whites smelling warm blood. At first they huddled on a wind-scoured plateau, torches flickering blue. Jon ordered rings of spearmen outwards, archers inner, children central. Whites emerged, eyes glowing sapphire through veils of white. Obsidian flashed. Wendell's axe cleft skulls that ruptured in bone-dust clouds. Ghost leapt, ripping rotten throats. But for every corpse felled, 2 more stumbled through snow. Jon felt arms tremble, lungs burning with cold. He parried a dead Hornfoot's rusted sword, then drove a spear of black glass under its chin. The thing shattered. Another tackled him. He rolled, dagger drawn, and stabbed ribs. Minutes stretched into nightmare. Yet just as muscle began to fail, horns sounded thrice from the wall. Deep, rolling, nearer than before. Shapes appeared through swirling snow. More black cloaks, Cotter Pike and lead, swinging lantern, shouting curses. Fresh obsidian shafts filled the sky, striking foes in flares of blue fire. Together, they fought, until the last white crunched into stillness. Snow kept falling, but enemy forms receded. Dawn broke sullen. Jon's shirt clung soaked in sweat. Frost rimed his beard. He counted his companions. 3 dead. 2 badly wounded, but 50 wildlings saved. He knelt, lungs heaving, and Ghost nudged his cheek. Back at Eastwatch, cheers greeted them. Sam cataloged the new arrivals. Homesick rangers wept at reunion with friends thought lost. Yet victory tasted of iron, small, sharp, and none too sweet. Jon watched as a pyre was built for the dead rangers, 2 of his tall hearts among them. Obsidian blades placed upon their chests, so even in death they might thrust at walkers. Flames licked snowflakes into steam. That night, with smoke still drifting, Sam entered Jon's chambers clutching a sealed raven scroll. "From White Harbor," he said. Jon broke the wax. Wyman Manderley's bold hand raced across parchment. "Word from North Road. Lady Lysa Arryn murdered. Hand of King accused. Littlefinger's chicanery deepens. Tyrell host moves on capital. Dragon Queen across sea has taken Meereen and speaks of Westeros. I arm every man. Stand vigilant. Send word of Wall's need. Pine and grain at the ready. I remain. Your friend in snow and sea. Wyman, Lord of White Harbor." Jon folded the letter. "Dragons stirring abroad. Lords murdered in Vale. 7 save us." "7?" Sam echoed. "I fear we'll need more than 7. Jon rested forehead against cold stone wall, letting the chill seep into thoughts. "We survive tonight. Tomorrow we elect commander proper. Then we ride again." "What of your claim?" Sam asked. Jon exhaled. "You want to hear it shouted from Eastwatch's parapets? Wait. Let the wall stand first." Sam placed a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever crown the South forges, the North already named you." "Name me, soldier," Jon whispered. "Until the long night's done." Election day dawned beneath a sky bruised mauve. Maesters tallied broken pigeon bones and scratch marks on slate boards. Each watch brother wrote a name on scrap of ice parchment. Despite Mallister and Pike's long service, despite Bowen Marsh's strict rations, despite Cotter Pike's coarse humor, the tally ended with one name writ thrice more than any other: Snow. Jon accepted the black-rimmed cloak of Lord Commander with hands that shook only slightly. He stood before assembled ranks where wildlings now stood intermingled. Some wearing borrowed black, some still bearing foxskin mantles. "Brothers," he said, voice carrying crisp. "We are the shield that guards. That vow never named blood nor birth nor breath. Only life. We fight for the living. So long as breath fills chest and blade fills hand, we hold." He opened both palms. "Beyond this wall live men who will fight beside us. We break bread with them. Any who will not serve our cause shall pass south unarmed. Any who will serve, don black, or go to their gods as they choose." Murmurs rippled. Cotter Pike barked laughter. Mallister inclined head in grudging respect. Free folk shuffled feet. Some uneasy, some proud. Jon raised voice. "We need messages carried to every holdfast. I call on Lord Wyman's grain convoy, on Lady Maeg's leatherworks, on House Karstark's steel. I call on Barroton's smiths, Saltcliff's netmakers, and Skagos goat drivers. Winter is here." He thrust Valyrian Longclaw aloft. "Let this sword's ancient fire guide us." The rippled steel glinted pale. Cheers rose, ragged at first, then swelling until stone walls trembled. Yet even as acclaim surged, Jon felt a chill deeper than frost along his spine. An awareness of eyes unseen watching from dark, beyond horizon. He remembered the blue-armored walker, Lord gazing upon the wall, as if upon prey yet to be claimed. He remembered Robb's laugh in rain turned to distant echo. And he remembered a pledge innumerable ages old, that Night's Watch would not fail. That evening he convened his closest officers in Eastwatch's map tower. Candles flickered, casting long shadows. Gray sea pounded cliffs below, vibrations thrumming up through flagstones. "We ride west along the wall," Jon announced, finger tracing black line on cracked map. "We gather garrisons from ruined towers, drag abandoned coal stores back to Castle Black, and lead every survivor to Eastwatch. Here we hold, sea at our flank, ice at our front. Meanwhile, Sam sails to Old Town with obsidian, to beg the Citadel smiths for secrets lost." Sam swallowed. "Old Town is leagues away. The seas. Take Mary's mercy. Her crew owes us. Sir Wendell commands." Jon looked at the night, who nodded stoutly. "Gather scrolls. Bring word of the dead to every archmaester who still listens." Pike asked. "Leave Castle Black empty." "Not empty," Jon said. "A rear guard of 60 holds the main gate." Mallister frowned. "And you?" "I ride to Hardhome." The room stilled. Hardhome, abandoned port beyond the Frostfangs where whispers set entire clans, vanished screaming into night. "You'll not return," Mallister said bluntly. "I must." Thousands of free folk fled there when Mance's host broke. "If we leave them, the dead harvest them and swell ranks." Sir Rendell slammed fist to chest. "Manderley sails with you." Jon shook head. "I need men who know the land and speak the tongue. You sail south. I'll take Tormund Giantsbane once we find him. A handful of rangers and ghost. Quiet speed, not banners." "Enderwines." Arguments simmered but died beneath his gaze. Eventually, Mallister exhaled. "Very well, Lord Commander." That night Jon climbed Eastwatch's seaward tower alone. Waves crashed below like black-muzzled beasts. Stars shone sparse between ragged cloud. He felt small. So small, between ocean vast and night, unending. Yet inside his chest burned ember from fire older than both. Lyanna's will, Rhaegar's song. He drew the scroll Howland Reed had given, unrolled it beneath starlight, read its vows once more. When dawn came, he burned the parchment in a brazier at tower top, scattering ashes to wild wind. Proof lay still in Greywater and White Harbor, but the original oath was gone. He would not carry crowns into the long night. He carried lives. As the sun, a feeble red coin, rose over gray sea, Jon fastened black fur tight, whistled ghost, and descended to courtyard where 20 rangers waited, faces grim yet resolute. Among them stood the scarred wildling woman Val, White Fawn, who claimed Tormund's daughter's Kenua. She hefted spear. "South broke oaths enough," she said. "North keeps its own." Jon mounted, turned west, and spurred down the narrow frozen track along the wall's foot. Snow swirled behind, erasing hoofprints almost as quickly as they formed. Ahead loomed a horizon white and endless, broken only by spines of distant mountains and the glint of frosted fur. In that moment, loneliness threatened to swallow him. No songs sung of bastards riding to forgotten ports with ghosts for company. But faintly he heard Robb's voice in his mind. "Ride." And he heard Ned's. "The man who passes sentence must swing the sword." And behind both, perhaps farther back than memory itself, he sensed another murmur, soft yet burning bright. A woman's whisper, "Promise me." He lowered helm visor, felt the night air bite like new iron. Then he rode into the cold, carrying a flame. None might see, yet all would feel when dawn finally broke, and the wall's shadow lengthened across a world reborn. Caw. Snow drained color from the world until it resembled parchment scraped thin white sky, white drifts. White seams where the wall's frozen rampart met land like the hinge of an iron-bound book. Jon rode at the column's head, ghost coursing wide arcs ahead like an outrider born of stormlight. Their mounts breathed plumes that congealed into brittle crystals before settling on manes already crusted with hoarfrost. Every jostle of the saddle sent tiny cracks whispering through the ice welded to his cloak. Above, the wall loomed, a sky-high glacier damming winds that buffeted their progress. Beneath that leviathan bulwark, men felt no larger than winter moths. They followed the narrow track Cotter Pike's rangers called the Sable Serpent. Switchbacking along the wall's foot, until the frozen pines thinned to a sparsely needled lattice. Here snow had drifted chest-deep in the gullies, so they moved single file, breaking crust with the blunted ends of long spears scavenged from abandoned mounds of watch gear. The wildling woman Val padded behind Jon, her white blonde braid stiff with rime, eyes the color of winter's shallow dawn. She said little, but when she did, her breath fogged in quick silver clouds. Mid-morning they passed one of the silent towers, a squat, hollow carcass gnawed by weather and inattention. Its shutterless arrow loops stared blankly upon the wilderness, like the sockets of a bleached skull. The heavy oak doors had gone entirely, leaving only 2 corroded hinges and a sodden pile of drifted snow laced with splinters. Jon halted a moment to study the ruin. Once, this had been a beating heart of the watch. Black-cloaked men oiling chains, raising signal fires, trading jests so crude steel blushed. Now only wind moaned through crushed lintels, its note oddly plaintive, as though it too recalled lost laughter. He felt Mallister's earlier words echo. Not enough men, not enough time. Had they 20,000 and a decade, they still could not refit every stronghold. Yet, they had neither. What they did have was purpose. Thin and tattered perhaps, but shot through with a stubborn thread the dead could not fray. Jon nudged his courser onward, boots creaking, and the columns slithered past the mausoleum. By twilight they reached the salmon stairs. A treacherous, half-collapsed stair carved into a cliff that fell away to the frozen, shivering sea. Somewhere below, water still churned, though the gale carried no brine here, only the metallic sting of ice. They tethered the horses behind wind-gnarled spruces and descended on foot, boots skidding, hands gripping hemp safety lines newly strung by pikes builders. At every third step, a ranger paused to chip away glazed frost, lest a single slip cascade into a fatal slide. Ghost bounded ahead, claws scrabbling on stone. The air changed as they dropped. It grew warmer, paradoxically, the way the mouth of a tomb might exhale stale breath. On the narrow shelf below the cliff, old fishermen's camps leaned drunkenly, collapsed tents of sealskin, a ring of stones encircling long-dead coals, nets strung like cobwebs between broken spars. Val knelt beside a soot-black kettle still bearing charred lumps. 2 moons. She judged, sifting ash through glove. Maybe 3. She sniffed the air like a wolf. A frown creased her brow. Too quiet. Jon signaled pairs to fan out. Shadows clotted among boulders. The sky's dim glow lent every shape an odd translucence. He moved toward a ruined boat turned on its side. A high warning growl from Ghost snapped him alert. He pivoted, sword half drawn, but nothing stirred. Then he smelled it. Faint rot underlying the sharper odors of seaweed and old smoke. He advanced on a mound of snow wedged between boat and cliff, prodded with his boot. Under the crust waited a body, face half-eaten by frostbite, eyes frozen ashine. Its arms were bound behind with rope blackened by blood. More than frost had killed this one. His gut gaped open, a coarse plug where entrails had been harvested. The wound walls were strangely clean, glass hard from congealed ice. Jon touched the skin. Stone cold, yet far smoother than a corpse that had lain weeks. He drew breath and saw no condensation from its lips. The thing was not stirring yet. He hurried back, voice low. White or near white. We burn him. Rangers dragged the corpse onto a bed of splintered nets. One struck flint to birch bark. Flames crawled, sputtering at first, then caught in sinew and oily rags. Blue fire licked the body. The corpse spasmed, jaws opening in silent scream before collapsing into embers. The rangers crossed themselves. Val spat toward the blaze. Food for the dead, she muttered. They've been here. All at once the camp felt narrower, the dark more crowded. Jon ordered double watches. The horses above whinnied to unseen stimuli and stamped frost until midnight. An hour past the wolf's first howl. Snow began again. Fat flakes swirling in eddies deeper than the ocean's calm. The flames hissed under wet snowfall. Jon drew his cloak high and retreated to a canvas lean-to erected against the cliff face. Ghost curled at the opening, nose white-dusted. As Jon dozed, dream pulled him through wavering tunnels of ice, through root-veined caverns lit by pale blue lanterns that were not lanterns. A heartbeat soared louder than drums. He glimpsed a vast shadow rise beyond the wall, broader than Frostfang and as tall as sky. Its eyes cold mirrors of stars extinguished. He woke sweating, though air bit like iron. Snow still fell, but silence reigned. Dawn's first tarnished silver rimmed the east. He roused the column. They pressed north, and the day unfolded with neither whites nor walkers, only the constant ache of cold and the knowledge of unseen watchers trailing behind cloud drifts. The second night, they reached an inlet where water lapped sluggish under a crust of scum ice. 3 rotten longboats jutted from the shallows, prows tilted like broken teeth. Jon expected to find more slain or risen. Instead, tracks marred the snow. Dozens of boot prints, some large enough to be giants, others the tiny indentations of children. All led west, deeper into forest. At their edges lay drag marks where sleds or makeshift travois had scored the crust. Val crouched, fingertips grazing a half-buried print. They fled at night, she surmised, carrying wounded. She sniffed the air again. No blood, only smoke. A camp burned yonder. She pointed to a smudge of ash enwreathed by a ring of stones. Jon ordered a perimeter search. They found infant-sized furs, torn and abandoned, and a shard of bone dagger stained black. Dried sap rather than blood. Something had frightened the wildlings enough to relinquish weapons. He imagined what? That same pale-eyed army that had assaulted the wall. He made camp on higher ground, ringed by fallen spruce boles layered in ice, easier to defend. They ate tough jerked elk and chewed on pine bark to stave hunger. That night, no dream came. Instead, Jon lay awake, listening to the distant roll of surf against ice floes, like drums muffled under blankets. He thought of Castle Black, of Sam somewhere in a heaving ship rounding the fingers, of Mallister sorting arrowheads by candlelight, of Stannis bartering oaths with lords who would count every grain. How small their war felt against the one rising north. The fourth morning dawned with sky scraped raw, a red band bruising the horizon. Rangers muttered that such dawns portended blood. By midday they breasted a ridge and saw Hardhome for the first time. Below, the bay lay frozen in swirling slabs, and upon its curve hunched splinters of a once thriving settlement. Charred pilings jutted like ribs from a corpse. Between them stood half-burned halls with gaping maws. Yet black smokes climbed from at least 24 campfires scattered among ruins. Makeshift walls of driftwood and stone ringed the inner settlement. And there, in a clearing where a temple to nameless gods had collapsed, a mast flew a banner, tattered gold sunburst sewn over black hide. Jon recognized it, Tormund Giantsbane's personal mark. Relief flickered, tempered by dread. If Tormund held Hardhome, he held it under siege. Jon signaled his companions to remain among trees, while he advanced with Val and 2 rangers bearing white flag strips bound to spear shafts. Ghost padded at heel. As they emerged onto snow-flattened slope, a horn's blast echoed from the settlement and shapes appeared atop the barricade. Thick-furred spearmen, archers in mismatched mail, a giant whose head rose above the fence like a boulder. Jon halted at 100 paces and raised gloved hands. Tormund, it's Jon Snow. There came a pause, a shifting of silhouettes, then a booming laugh that ricocheted from ice walls. The gates parted. Out waddled Tormund, red beard crusted with frozen mead. Eyes merry though ringed with exhaustion. He wore a bearskin cloak speckled with soot, and in each hand he carried an iron-bound club. Behind him loomed the giant. Snow white, one eye milky, the other dark as iron slag. Well, shove a mammoth up my arse, Tormund bellowed. The crows sent a pup and got back a wolf prince. Come lad, let me clap eyes on you. Jon approached. They clasped forearms. He felt the warmth of living flesh through fur and leather, and realized he had forgotten what true heat was. You live, he said. I was afraid Hardhome had swallowed all. It ate most, Tormund admitted, lips twisting. But some bones choke even devils. We stand yet. Come inside before wind steals your balls. He motioned. Val passed through, offering Tormund a narrow nod. The giant ducked after, club scraping gate crossbeam. Within, Hardhome buzzed like a kicked anthill. Hundreds moved between fire pits, skinning cod hauled through ice holes, mending nets, bartering dried mushrooms. Many bore bandaged wounds, some had frostbitten ears swaddled. Children scavenged among rubble for charcoal scrap. A row of makeshift graves lined the central square. Mounds of stone piled upon frozen faces. Ravens hopped upon them, croaking. Tormund led them to a hall built from salvaged planks where smoke belched through gaps in roof. Inside, the air smelled of spruce pitch and salt pork. Atop a plank table lay rudimentary maps, scratched hide showing wall, bay, and ranges. Tormund gestured Jon to sit. Talk. Not choice. The walkers tighten noose. Food thins. What offer you bring? Nemdarawind. Jon told him of obsidian, of the watch's openness, of manderly supplies en route. He did not speak of claims or crowns. Now was not the hour. Tormund listened, his broad face unreadable, then stroked beard. Some will follow you, he said. Some still curse your name for lying with crows and leaving Ygritte to die. Jon swallowed the spear of memory. Ygritte's arrow-sharp wit, her blood seeping on snow, her eyes pleading for warmth he could not give. I'll carry their curses, he answered. But I need their spears. Tormund blew a breath that fluttered mustache. If we stay, we die. If we flee by sea, we freeze. If we cross the wall, we fight. He chuckled, a deep rumble. A glorious end. But I'll not lead them for you. They must choose. He pushed to his feet, banging fist on doorpost. Assembly. Within minutes, the ruined square filled. Wildlings of every tribe, thens with bronze axes, rag-skinned women of the Ice River clans, blue-lipped fisherfolk, gathered before the hall. Snow fell in lazy feathers. The giant thumped his club beside Tormund. Jon stood on a broken altar, wind-tugging black cloak. Tormund roared recital of Jon's offer, embroidered with giantsbane embellishments. He called Jon, the crow-turned wolf who strides both camps, sworn to fight death itself. He named the walkers, ice-pissers, and the wall. A new mother's teat, earning laughter. When he finished, silence settled, broken by a gaunt spearwife stepping forward. Why trust him? She rasped. He fought us at the fist. My lover fell to his blade. Jon faced her. I cannot give back the dead. I can only promise more will die if we do not join. He planted Longclaw in ice, blade shimmering gray. This sword is Valyrian. It killed walkers. But one sword cannot guard a realm. I need your axes, your bows, your courage. A tall youth yelled. Crows burn our gods. Jon shook his head. We have no gods left but snow and steel. Choose life with steel, or death with ice. He met face after face, fear, anger, hope catching like sparks. At last he raised an obsidian dagger high. We wield dragon glass. With it, any hand may kill a walker. Yours, mine, child or chief. Grumbling rippled. Tormund studied the crowd, drank in its mood as a sailor reads tides. Then he lifted his club. I have bled for this lad. He holds no throne, but he holds his word. If you would live beyond this night, follow me beyond the wall, south as free men beside wolves. If you would die here in a ring of blue fiends, stay and freeze. Choose now. For heartbeat upon heartbeat, nothing. Then the gaunt spearwife threw her weapon at Jon's feet. I come, she said. A Then followed, clapping chest. The ice fisher chief limped forward. In slow wave, hands raised, voices shouted assent. Not all. Some scowled, retreating to shadow. But hundreds cried, with you, until the square echoed. That night plans spawned like fire sparks. Tormund appointed captains. Jon organized columns. Wounded and elderly on sleds, warriors flanking, giant as rear guard. They would march dawn, hugging sea cliff where snow drifted shallow, then veer to the wall's east watch gate 2 days hence. In the meantime they rebuilt sled runners, butchered seal for protein, shaped crude glass-tipped javelins from shards Jon brought. Between tasks, Jon learned at Hardhome's nightmare. 3 weeks earlier, walkers descended, herding whites like shepherd dogs minding flock. They captured dozens alive, slitting throats upon black ice, letting blood freeze before raising corpses again. Some captives still lived, staked by sinew, eyes dull. Tormund had attempted rescue. Half of those sent returned as silent dead. "We fight them there," he said, pointing north where Aurora flickered. Jon shook his head. "Lives first," he insisted, "vengeance later." As dawn purpled clouds, scouts returned breathless. A walker host 3 miles off, camped amid ruins north. Their movements slow, as if waiting for cold to thicken ice. Jon did figures, too near, but he refused to abandon Hardhome until every child moved. They must hold a day. He ordered trenches inside barricade, filled with driftwood soaked in whale oil. Wildlings worked with grim speed. Rangers strung bowlines from vantage roofs. Val climbed remains of bell tower, longbow sighting through shutter slit. Jon took central defense at collapsed temple, flanked by Tormund and the giant Magnar, he learned, who called him tiny human friend. Midday, wind shifted. A chill deeper than cold calved through snow, freezing sweat into glass beads. Far tree line fractured and shapes emerged. Ranks of whites, their rag tunics flapping, bones white. And at their front glided walker knights, tall helmless figures whose flesh shimmered like moonlit glass. Behind them lumbered a mammoth reduced to parchment skin, ribs poking like keels. Jon counted arrows. Not enough. He signaled. Flaming torches tossed into trenches ignited blue because of whale oil. Fire roiled higher than a house. Whites advanced regardless, feet crunching. As they reached perimeter, archers loosed. Obsidian shards zipped, striking walkers, 2 shattered shards tinkling. But many arrows failed, hitting Whitebone instead. Whites pushed on, stumbling into fire. Their flesh lit like dry parchment. Some crumpling, others clawing forward even while burning. The heat forced defenders back. Gaps opened. Jon charged, Longclaw scorching through neck of a dead raider. Tormund swung club in whirlwind arcs, bones cracking. Magnar roared, ripping a white in 2 bare hands, using torso as flail. Val on bell tower dropped glass arrow into a walker's eye. Ice splintered, but the horde pressed. Whites clambered over each other, smothering flames under weight. Giantsbane barked orders. Rangers stabbed spear points wreathed in cloth fire. Screams, wildling. Watch, white indistinguishable, mingled with howls of polar wind. Jon saw a walker lord in breastplate, studded crystalline approach the thin line near fish drying racks. The creature's sword exhaled frost. It carved 2 men in half with serpentine grace. Snow hissed where blade passed. Jon sprinted, leaping the smoldering ditch, ghost at his heels. He met the walker's swing with Longclaw. Steel rang like bell of strange pitch. Shock numbed his wrists. The walker's eyes were voids swirling star-speckled blue. The creature hissed cold as void. Second stroke came low. Jon blocked. Twisted, plunged dagger of obsidian up beneath belly. The glass entered like knife through tallow. Then white fire erupted. The walker dissolved, armor clattering empty. Where it fell, the whites near jerked as strings cut. They dropped lifeless. Breach stilled. Jon gasped steam. But another walker stepped over fallen remains. He was tiring. Yet from barricade right, a howl erupted. Greywind? No. Greywind long dead. It was giant Magnar's voice, a boom that shook timbers. He charged, seized a burning rafter. Swinging it like lance, he pinned the walker, pushing until both toppled into ditch of embers. The walker flared blue. Giant roared as flames licked fur, but rose again with beard aflame, unhurt. Defenders cheered ragged, but casualties grew. Jon counted trenches half extinguished. He signaled retreat to inner line, fighting step by step. They would hold till night, then slip south under dark. Then a bugle's clarion pierced ice roar. From the seaside, Jon whirled. Eastwatch banner snapped against gale atop newly raised mast. Beyond, along ice shore, black-sailed longboats beached, oars still quivering. From them poured fresh black cloaks. Cotter Pike's men, Sir Wendell's knights, plus white-garbed sailors of Mary's Mercy bearing crossbows, strung with glass bolts. At their fore strode Denny's Mallister on shaggy courser. They wheeled into formation, volley upon volley of arrows arcing, felling wights. With renewed vigor, Hardhome's defenders surged, pushing undead back through breach. After another hour of grinding, the horde withdrew, leaving field heaped with motionless corpses. Jon's legs buckled, but Tormund slapped back, laughing hoarse. Dawn and ale, Crowwolf. No ale awaited, but there was dawn. A pale smear across ice that colored the dead as pale as their killers. They wasted no hour. Mallister's reinforcements organized exodus. Women loaded sleds. Sailors patched torn sails into windbreaks. Wildling archers roamed outskirts culling stragglers. By midday, a caravan 2,000 strong snaked southward. Jon rode rear guard with Ghost. Tormund marched front. The giant carried 3 wounded children in a sling. 2 nights later, they spied the wall's shadow. Massive gray cliff mottled by moon. Eastwatch Gate yawned, opened wide. Horns boomed greeting, torches lined top, casting banner silhouettes. When the caravan poured through, there were tears. Wildlings collapsed. Some kissing stone, others glaring wide-eyed at the immensity. Cotter Pike barked orders, guiding them into storerooms converted to barracks. Jon dismounted only when last sled passed. Inside yard, Maester Harmune met him with parchment. "Raven from White Harbor," he said. "Ships arrive 3 days hence with grain. But this came too." He handed second scroll sealed black. Jon cracked it. The sigil within, a flayed man. Words neat, cold. "Lord Snow, the North calls me Warden. Kneel and I spare your black brothers. Refuse, and I flay every crow at Winterfell's gate. I hold the Stark boy as proof. Ramsay Bolton, heir of the Dreadfort." Jon's grip whitened. "Rickon," he breathed. Tormund lumbered up. "Bad bark?" "Bolton has the boy." Jon tasted fury, iron thick. "This wall holds today. Tomorrow we ride south." Mallister overheard, voice gentle yet firm. "What of walkers?" "The wall will stand," Jon replied. "We left garrisons, dragonglass, giants, wildlings pledged. The dead regather, but slowly. Ramsay flays now." Val stepped forward. "You ride to rescue a cub. I ride." Tormund slammed his chest. "Giant's Bane rides." Magnar rumbled assent. Cotter Pike tapped hilt. "Night's Watch doesn't swarm south for Lord Squabbles," he warned. Jon turned, ice in eyes. "This is no squabble. The Dreadfort serves the same dark. Flayed men empower fear. That fear feeds the cold. Every soul freed from Bolton joins us when walkers come. We must cut rot or die choking on it." Pike held gaze, then spat frost. "Very well. 30 men I can spare. No more." "Enough." Jon looked across faces. Wildling, knight, crow, giant. Something knit them. Not banners, not faith, resolve. He felt weight of unsheathed crown pressing invisible upon brow. But he wore command cloak, not gold. He gripped parchment. "Rest, feed, arm. At first light we march. Winter's march ends at Winterfell." The plan spread like wildfire through halls. Some watchers feared. Others burned for vengeance. Jon spent short hours with Sam, drafting letters for White Harbor, Carhold, Bear Island, call to swords. Maester Harmune copied proofs of Rhaegar's wedding, sealed in scroll cases. If Jon fell, truth must still live. Before dawn gride, he found himself in Castle Black's Lishyard, where old Godswood heart tree once grew. Snow buried roots, but trunk remained, dead for centuries, face carved weather-worn. He knelt, touched cold bark. "Guide me," he whispered to no one and everyone. "Father, mother, brother, unknown gods." Wind sighed answer, lifting his hair. When he rose, Ghost trotted beside, and in the yard waited the Avengers. Tormund astride a shaggy Garan, Val on lean chestnut, giant Magnar, on foot with a small forest of spears on back, Cyrindle armored sea green, Manderly knights, 30 black brothers riding shaggy mountain horses. Behind them, 200 wildlings sturdy enough to wield arms marched, axes on shoulders. Among them moved Gilly, baby on chest, refusing to be left. Jon swung into saddle, long claw sheathed across back. Obsidian daggers at belt. The gate creaked open. Pale dawn spilled. He lifted gloved fist, forward, and the host surged onto King's Road etched white beneath frozen sky. Past them, the wall receded, titanic and watchful. Soon its shadow gave way to rolling hills. The path south lay uncertain. Frey soldiers roamed the tree line. Bolton scouts perched in towers. Snowstorms brewed along edge of Wolfswood. But hearts beat fierce. Each league carried them deeper into a realm where wolves were hunted and dragons whispered. Yet banners sprouted. At Queen's Crown, Karstark deserters surrendered, asking to follow. At Long Lake, Bear Island longboats rode up icy tributary, delivering 50 spearwives under Alais and Mormont. At last Hearth, Umber's battered gates from within, overthrowing Smaljan who'd sided with Ramsay. Then emerged to join the march, roaring songs that rattled icicles. The column swelled to 4,000 by the time the pink bastions of Winterfell peaked above snowy ridges. Smoke coiled from chimneys. Too little for garrison, too much for feast. Ramsay's torches. Scouts returned with numbers. Bolton Frey host of 5,000 inside walls. Many forced northern levies. Jon convened captains in half-collapsed Weaver's cottage under midnight aurora. Maps scratched into mud. Strategies debated. Some urged siege. Giantsbane wanted storm gates at dawn, trusting Magnar and giant brothers to rip logs free. Alysanne favored night infiltration of Fisher's culvert beneath East Rampart. Jon listened, eyes on Winterfell's silhouette, remembering how he learned to climb Inner Keep where Bran once fell. Finally, he spoke. Bolton lives for fear, flaying hostages to break hearts. We shatter fear when sun rises. Ramsay expects siege. We give storm. He outlined plan. Giants break Hunter's Gate. Spearwives and wildlings scale crippled North Tower. Knights watch archers hold breach. Inside, Jon and select guard hunt Bolton and Hall. Free Rickon. Dawn arrived blood-red behind ragged clouds. Snow fell thick, but gentle. Muffling hoofbeats as host deployed across field. Jon rode row by row, clasping shoulders. No banners but direwolf, he said. No quarter for flayers. Giants advanced first. 2 more joined Magnar, each hauling dead pine trunks as battering hammers. At 300 paces, Winterfell's walls came alive with crossbow bolts. But obsidian-tipped arrows from Jon's rangers answered. Clattering battlements. Giants roared, swung trunks. The Hunter's Gate splintered like rotten bone. Snow clouds swallowed cacophony, but then gate burst inward. Wildling spearmen poured through opening. Hacking. Spearwives climbed rope ladders glazed with ice, scaling North Tower while shield walls hammered. Jon led central wedge, the Blackfangs, mixed of watch and Manderly heavy cavalry. Galloping through breach, hooves spitting slush. Ghost streaked ahead, crimson eyes blazing. Inside yard chaos reigned. Frey soldiers scattered as giant tore parapet stones, hurling like sling rounds. Fighters clashed under falling snow. Jon dismounted, sprinted across torchlit yard toward Great Hall. Bolt grazed shoulder. Leather parted. Warm blood seeped, but he pressed. Great Hall doors shut, barred. He signaled Wendell. Knight hefted warhammer, delivered thunderous blow. Hinges popped. The door flew inward. Smell of copper and dog musk smothered senses. Ramsay Bolton sat atop dais. Leathers dyed pink. Expression flickering candle grin. Beside him stood a young boy. Rickon, filthy, eyes wild. Blade to throat by Bolton's pale hand. Bodyguards arrayed, pink men. Flayed skin banners drooping. Brother bastard. Ramsay sang. Come claim your pup. He pressed knife, blood beading. Jon advanced, long claw raised. Let him go, and I grant you mercy. Bolt of laughter. Mercy is a girl's fable. Ramsay flicked wrist. Knife bit deeper. Rickon whimpered. Ghost snarled from doorway. Bolton's hounds, 6 gaunt beasts, slunk from shadows. But Jon had not come alone. Val slipped through rafters, leaping onto beam like cat. She drew bow. Strung with bent dragon glass tip. While Ramsay gloated, she loosed. Arrow blurred, piercing his forearm. Knife clanged. Rickon jerked away. Bolton screamed, black blood spurting his glass-seethed flesh. Chaos. Jon surged, blade flashing. Bodyguard lunged. Long claw severed arm. Ramsay stumbled. Hounds barking. Jon parried another slash, riposted in thigh. Bolton shrieked, stumbled to dais edge. Ghost lunged, fangs burying in hound's neck, while others yelped retreat. Wendell bulldozed through second guard, mace crushing helm. Bolton scrambled to feet, eyes bright mania. He drew second dagger, rushing Jon. They collided. Dagger grazed mail. Jon's elbow smashed Bolton's jaw. Ramsay spat tooth, slashed frantically. Jon trapped wrist, twisted until bones snapped. Dagger clattered. Bolton dropped to knees. Weaponless, he giggled ragged. I win in death. He rasped, flayed forever in halls. He tried to spit again, but Jon's gauntlet seized his throat. No banners of flayed men, Jon said. Not ever again. He drove Longclaw through Bolton's chest, clean dark coal. Pink leather parted, blood-coated rippled steel. Ramsay's eyes widened, lips shaping soundless jest. Then, emptiness. Silence swelled in hall. Outside battle roared still, but within only breathing. Jon withdrew sword, wiped on Ramsay's cloak. He knelt before Rickon. Brother, he whispered. Rickon stared. Recognition slow, then tears took him. Jon embraced, feeling boy's ribs, twig slender. Val dropped from beam. Bolton line ended. She said. Tormund burst through door, beard crusted red and white. We hold walls, he reported. Frey men yield like berries under boot. His gaze fell on Bolton corpse. He spat. A good day's hunt. By dusk, fighting ceased. Frey banners burned in yard braziers. Survivors, northern levies forced to fight, laid down arms. Jon walked ramparts where giant Magnar patrolled, stepping careful among stones. Snow still fell, but air lighter. That night, Winterfell's godswood once again thrummed with living song. Jon led Rickon through Ironwood Gate. Heart trees face wept sap, bright in torch glow. Jon knelt, Rickon beside. On knees he felt tired, beyond bones. But inside, a thread of warmth sparked. Tormund and Val stood guard under ancient branches. Sir Rendell ordered cookfires for hungry host. Beyond walls, banners rising anew. Direwolf in gray, merman in blue, bear in green, tree in red. The north stirred from nightmare. In Great Hall, cleansed of flayed tapestries, Jon addressed captains. The walkers gather, he said. This victory matters only if we carry truth south and strength north. Fleet sails from White Harbor soon. They bring grain enough for thousands. We must move them to Wall. He looked to Mormont, Karstark, Umber. Will you stand? A thunder of assent. Alysanne Mormont declared Bear Island's men to garrison Winterfell. Karstark promised smithy for obsidian blades. Umbers swore hounds for ranger packs. Strategy set, tasks assigned. Later, alone atop broken battlement, Jon surveyed land. Fires dotted horizon. Bivouacs of his merging armies, guardians of realm. Yet far north, a blue glow flickered. Distant but growing. He knew war not done. Footsteps. Sam? Cloaked in snow-dusted wool at his side. Old Town answered, Sam said softly. They send us every book on dragonglass, plus smiths who studied Valyrian forging. Also, tidings from across sea. Daenerys of House Targaryen sails for Dragonstone with fleet and 3 dragons. Jon absorbed news, not surprised. Winds of destiny blew. Then our fight grows larger. Sam shivered. Bigger than all of us. Jon's eyes fixed north. Bigger than dragons. But we will not kneel to fear. Snow gusted around, yet he felt heart steady. He placed hand on stone. Scarlet rust from Bolton long since washed by snow. Below, Rickon's laugh drifted faint, playing with ghost of Bran's voice, Arya's shriek of joy long ago, of Robb singing with lute. Mother's hush. Eddard's counsel. In that chorus, he heard his own voice, neither Stark nor Targaryen alone but both. And more, the voice of men who choose life. He turned to Sam. Send Raven to Eastwatch. Tell them winter wolves march home. Tell them they will not stand alone. Sam nodded, tears bright, and hurried down. Jon remained, ghostly snow swirling. Ghost emerged from stairwell, pressed warm muzzle to gloved palm. Together, they stared north where aurora shimmered in cathedral vault of sky. Green curtains rippling over world's edge. Night burned with color. Some might call it omen of doom. Jon breathed cold so deep it seared lungs, then whispered a promise to the silent lights. We are coming. In the hush that followed, wind shifted, and for a fleeting heartbeat, he imagined distant drums of ice faltered, as if some vast ear had heard, and trembled. The dawn after Winterfell's liberation birthed a sky of burnished rose and alabaster, as though the gods themselves painted fresh hope upon the firmament. Yet hope required mortar and sinew, and Jon knew the cost of either. While fires still crackled in the castle's braziers, and the scent of fresh bread mingled with lingering whiffs of battle-scorched timber, he convened a war council in the solar once used by his father. Sunlight speared cracked shutters, dust motes drifting like ghost snow over a gathering unlike any Winterfell had ever known. Manderly lords in sea green, Bear Island spearwives with sleeves rolled to reveal corded arms, Night's Watch officers in black wool, free folk wrapped in furs dyed with berry juice, and giants hunching by the door so their shaggy crowns brushed soot-dark rafters. Jon stood at the high table, long claw resting point down, gloved hands atop the pommel. Behind him, Rickon sat upon a stout oaken chair cushioned with Karstark wolf pelts. Shaggy Dog curled protectively at his feet. The boy's eyes were still wide from recent horrors, but each hour they gleamed with more of the unbroken steel that ran in Stark blood. Our walls hold, Jon began, voice carrying over the scrape of benches. Our hearths burn, but the wall cannot be guarded by Winterfell's fires alone. We have 3 tasks: feed, forge, and fight. He gestured to Wyman Manderly, whose girth seemed to shrink under the stress of organizing supply trains up the King's Road. Lord Wyman sails 3 days hence with grain enough for 6 moons and 2,000 barrels of dried cod. Karstark forges at Wintertown will refit every plowshare into spear or knife. Giant timber from the Wolfswood will patch keeps along the wall. He nodded to Magnar and his brethren. And Bear Island spearwives will carve the handles themselves. Maeg's daughter Alysanne raised a mug. We will. She grunted, voice like Huno, and any man who calls the work unladylike can swallow his own hammer. Laughter rippled, cutting tension thin as early spring ice. Jon waited until it ebbed. Second, he said, every house loyal to Stark blood will send masons north. We'll mine the Black Cliffs east of Skagos for dragonglass, then haul ore to White Harbor, where Lord Wyman's smiths and maesters from Old Town will learn to mold it into arrowheads, spear points, even chain links. A low whistle rose from Cotter Pike. Glass chain? Never seen the like. Nor have I, Jon allowed. But if the wall's gate chains break when ice giants batter or ram against it, we'll need replacements that punish the dead for pressing close. Denys Mallister stroked his pointed beard. The Citadel's smiths swore Valyrian glass becomes brittle above cherry heat. You've found a way around that. Maester Quilborn of Old Town writes of sea coal forges. Sam said from the side. shuffling parchment. It burns low and even, preserving glass integrity. He's chartered 12 smiths and 2 raven crafters to sail with the supplies. Morgarth Snow of Last Hearth, folded arms. Glass and coal won't fill bellies. Rickon interjected, surprising them. Nor will unburied dead. We'll have both. His small, fierce certainty hushed dissent. Jon ruffled brother's hair, pride soft as Mite snow. Third, Jon continued, we march again before the new moon. Not south, this time, but north to join Eastwatch's garrison on the ice lakes west of the Shivering Sea. Scouts report another walker host forming beyond the Skirling Pass, a larger force than the one that struck Hardhome. We won today, but only by surprise and fire. Next time surprise is theirs unless we strike first. Oh. Tormund clapped a meaty hand on table. Giant's Bane's axes thirst Crow Wolf. I say we carve their icy prince a new mouth to scream through. Murmurs of assent rolled. Yet Lord Wyman cleared his throat, voice rumbling over the surf of approval. A stirring speech, my prince. My lord. He corrected quickly. But grain wagons travel slow. If we strip Winterfell to chase whites, who guards the pups left behind? Jon had answers prepared, yet before he spoke, Val rose graceful as wind-bent birch. The free folk. Her pale hair shone candlelit. We guarded the frost fangs for generations. Leave us here, sworn under stark law. We have no wish to bow to the Boltons like again. Karstark Seneschal drew breath to object. The spearwives side-eyed him, and the words retreated. Jon inclined head. So be it. The Wolfswood Freekeepers, they'll call you. Val's brow quirked. We'll call ourselves what we please, but we'll keep it. Tormund roared with mirth. Careful, Snow Pup. She'll have you swearing yourself to her next. Color touched Jon's cheeks, though not from shame. With broad strokes settled, the council spent hours in finer gears. Route lines inked on calfskin, supply columns tallied, dragon glass quota etched, raven codes updated. When last parchment sealed with Rickon's revived direwolf sigil. Grey Wolf's head, green eyes, Jon dismissed them. Snow had begun again, a thick hush falling like Mercy's blanket. Laughter and the clank of arms echoed down corridors as war's new allies dispersed to tasks. Jon lingered on the balcony above the Godswood. Bran once clambered those very ledges. He saw ghost images, brother laughing, Arya sword dancing, Sansa humming to the mud sparrows. But memory yielded to present when soft footfalls approached. Ace Karstark, cloak of ashfox fur, stopped beside him. My lord. She began. Gaze on dancing snow. Carhold stands, but hearts they're bruised from years under Bolton threat. They'll need a Stark bride or maybe a prince to mend it. Jon stiffened. My vows. She shook her head. I've no ambition for myself. I mean Lady Sansa. She's captive still, he said quietly. King's Landing may keep her as long as Cersei draws breath. Then your next war sits farther south than the Wall, Alice replied. And you'll need more than giants. You need the Vale's knights, the Riverlords, the Tyrell's wheat. You need time, Jon finished, which the dead will not grant. Ace touched his forearm, grip firm. Then barter. Trade lineage for swords. Call yourself Stark to the north, Targaryen to the south. Wear both sigils. Her eyes sparkled with flint. A dragon wolf might scare enough lords to kneel before they see your teeth. She left him in swirling flakes. For a long while, he watched her descent into courtyard torchglow, her silhouette swallowed by winter's white blaze. He leaned on the frost-slick balustrade, knuckles pale. Behind, an ancient rustle. Maester Harmune shifting into the alcove, scroll tucked under arm. Raven from Dragonstone, he said, voice papery. The Queen requests parley. Jon pivoted. Daenerys Targaryen? Aye. She acknowledges a letter Maester Sam dispatched. The matter of dragonglass mines and a certain prince. Her ships make harbor at White Harbor within fortnight. Jon exhaled, clouding air. She sails north, not south. Dragonstone's harbor fell foul with storm surge, and the reach closes grip on black water. Safer to harbor among loyal wolves than dubious lions. Jon considered. Send welcome, but warn. Dragon's Bank no fire unbridled. Winterfell's towers are oak and ice. He turned back to balustrade. When the queen arrives, the north must see a Stark greet her. Harmune bowed. Very good, Lord Stark. Jon closed eyes. Did that title still fit? He wore snow like a scar, Targaryen like hidden brand iron. But Stark sounded like warm stone walls and the hush of weirwood leaves. Yes, he would be Stark again when she came. He prayed that was enough. The first glimpse of dragonfire over White Harbor came on a bitter dawn when hoarfrost encrusted Manderley banners until the mermen shimmered silver. Fisherfolk watching from quays dropped nets, mouths agape, as three-winged shadows banked above the bay. Their roars shook the roofs, rattled gulls from steeples. But those roars bore no malice. The dragons wheeled, exhaled harmless gouts of steam and sparks, then perched upon custom-built stone cradles Wyman's masons had erected outside the sea wall. Daenerys Stormborn came ashore in a cloak of black velvet lined with wolf white, a nod to her hosts, her silver-gold hair braided in 3 coils studded with jet. At her side strode Tyrion Lannister in fur-trimmed doublet, and Missandei cloaked in heavy shawl. Grey Worm led unsullied ranks behind, spears bristling in disciplined silence. Lord Wyman's bulk bent in courteous half-bow. Your Grace, the North welcomes you on behalf of Prince Rickon Stark and Lord Commander Jon Snow. Word of Bolton's demise had traveled swiftly. None yet dared use the name Targaryen aloud, but rumors thrummed like harp strings under every chimney. Let us hurry north, Daenerys said when greetings done. My dragons loathe sea winds, and I sense the wall calls. 2 days later, riders thundered ahead, announcing the queen's approach. Winterfell's ramparts lined with lanterns, banners streaming. Snow fell, thick as goose down. Jon stood in the bailey beneath the heart tree, garbed in black leather trimmed with direwolf gray, and bearing crimson clasp shaped like 3-headed dragon. Subtle, but not hidden. At his left stood Rickon, at his right Sansa's ghost-given flesh. Lady Brienne bearing a letter smuggled from King's Landing confirming Sansa's survival, but continued captivity. When Daenerys rode through the gate atop a pale destrier, borrowed from Manderley stables, Jon stepped forward. Their eyes met. Hers, unfathomable violet. His storms-wept gray. She dismounted. Snowflakes kissed her braids like scattered pearls. Your Grace, Jon greeted. Lord Snow, she replied. He offered arm. She placed gloved hand. Together, they ascended great hall steps, where pine boughs hung for welcome. Inside, heat roared from hearths. Tables laden, spiced turnips, boar glazed with honey, and great trenchers of candied fruit preserved since autumn. Yet feast grew solemn when Jon presented the letter bearing the Stark direwolf and Targaryen dragon entwined, inked by Archmaester Quillborn. It proposed alliance in defense of the living. Her dragons, his dragonglass, her claim south of Neck, his guardianship north, mutual recognition of rightful heritage. Daenerys read in silence. At last, she set parchment down, gaze sweeping hall. Wildlings, giants, Stark loyalists, shoulder to shoulder. I came for allies, not vassals. She said, voice ringing. And I find both wolf and dragon already joined. She turned to Jon. Do you bend the knee? Jon's breath steamed. The North will not kneel to any who cannot keep them alive. But join your fire to our ice, and we will stand at your side without bent backs. He paused, then added lower. A dragon should fly free, not leash wolves. Silence taut as bowstring. Daenerys' lips curved, the ghost of a smile. Well said. She lifted a goblet. To living hearts beating against the dark. Goblets raised. A lushed. Nosh. That night, songs rang. The Rains of Castamere absent from repertoire, replaced by Bear and the Maiden Fair hammered out of tune on lute, while giants attempted harmonies that shook roof struts. Later, Jon stood atop Winterfell's rebuilt battlements with Daenerys. Below, dragons slumbered curled around braziers, their breath sending eddies of snow skyward. "Your ancestors destroyed my family," Daenerys said quietly, watching orange glow dance on icicles. "Yet here we stand. They destroyed mine as well," Jon answered. She looked question. "Eris burned my grandfather, butchered my uncle. Stark blood soaked the South before Robert's rebellion ever touched your house. Cold wind whipped her cloak. Yet you bear Rhaegar's blood, and Ned Stark raised you." He nodded. "Rhaegar's son, Eddard's heir, yes. I carry light and dark both." "So do your dragons, monsters born of fire who yet keep small folk warm. We are what we choose to be." She studied him, a long, measuring gaze, then turned to snowy vastness beyond walls. "I choose to defend this realm before I rule it. Then we share purpose." A horn blast echoed faintly from the outer bailey. Scouts returning. Jon descended to meet them. 2 weary riders dismounted, snow crusted thick on brows. "My lord," one gasped. "The weeping water is frozen bank to bank." Walkers mass on opposite shore beneath banner of faceless stag made of ice. Thousands, maybe more. Marching. Dying. Daenerys' eyes narrowed. "Then the night is coming sooner than sung." Jon ordered war council before dawn. Queen, knights, spearwives, mesters. Candles guttered as maps spread once more. Plan set. Meet Walker Host on ice flats 2 leagues north of Eastwatch, where Daenerys dragons might strafe whites, while giants anchor flanks, unsullied spear wedge the center, Stark cavalry stampede from Hidden Ridge. A kill zone marked where trenches of whale oil would be lit by flaming arrows. "Dragons fear crossbow bolts," Tyrion warned. "The dead may hurl ice javelins. Keep altitude high." Daenerys accepted counsel, though her jaw tightened. Jon assigned Mallister command of Eastwatch Gate, Sam steward of Dragonglass Reserves. Rickon would remain in Winterfell, under Bear Island guard. Rickon stomped boot. "I can fight." "You will," Jon assured, crouching to meet eyes. "But kings guard hearth as brave as they guard walls. Make Winterfell glow bright, so our wounded find warmth." Giant fingers ruffled boy's hair. 5 nights later, armies assembled beneath aurora flames flickering green and purple. Winds wailed like orphaned ghosts. Dragons circled overhead, wings stirring vortices of snow. Wildlings in bone armor stood shoulder to shoulder with unsullied and mirrored bronze. Black brothers in patched cloaks anchoring rear ranks. The ice plain shimmered under starlight, slick mirror to heavens. Along its far edge, shapes materialized. Whites by uncounted thousands, their ribs shining through frozen flesh, mammoths harnessed to sled rams, giants with chains of ice. And at the center, atop a skeletal pale horse, the Night King, skin crystalline, eyes pits ablaze. Beside him glided white walkers bearing lances that bled frost. Jon and Daenerys stood at ridge crest. She mounted Drogon. His black scales gleamed dim red where brazier light reflected. Jon swung into saddle of shaggy courser, ghost at hoof. Tormund slapped shield, a thunderous beat answered by spear raps and drum. Giants bellowed. Trumpet, call. Split sky. Giants surged, axes flashing. Unsullied advanced with choreographed precision. Shields overlapping. Dragons swooped, engines of living flame. Battle met. Drogon dived, exhaling torrent of orange that carved swath through front line, melting ice into boiling flood. Whites hissed, vapor rising. Rhaegal followed, narrower breath. Viserion roared, scattering ice bats the walkers had conjured. The Night King raised arms, and spears of blue fire shot skyward. One streak grazed Viserion's wing. Scales burst frost, reptilian scream rending. Rhaegal banked aside. Drogon barrel rolled, flame continuing. On ground, Jon led Stark cavalry around flank, hooves cracking crust. Wildling archers loosed obsidian-tipped shafts trailing cloth fire at trenches. Oil ignited, walls of flame hemming dead. Yet whites clambered through, bodies burning but relentless. Wind sharpened, clouds spilled snow. Visibility shrank to arm's length. Jon hacked, parried, Longclaw's Valyrian edge sending skull shards spinning. Ghost tore hamstrings. Silent fury. A Walker Lord confronted him, wielding spear of mist. Strikes blurred. Jon blocked high slash, riposted, yet frost-numbed fingers, slow. Walker thrust. Jon twisted. Spear scraped pauldron, freezing iron instantly. He dropped shoulder, smashed Longclaw through chest. Walker shattered, shards glittering. But heat drained, limbs heavy. He glimpsed Daenerys above, Drogon encircled by swirling ice shards conjured by Night King. The dragon's flame flickered under onslaught. Wings labored. Jon spurred mount toward Queen's Peril. A blue spear arced, time slowed. Jon shouted but wind stole voice. Spear stabbed Drogon's right haunch, beast roared agony, reared. Daenerys clung reins, hair whipping. Below, trenches faltered. Fire extinguished by storm conjured. Whites poured through breach. Unsullied lines buckled. Mallister's flank threatened. Torment's giants slain, one falling across icy maw, creating bridge for dead. Desperation gripped. Jon raised horn, 3 longs blasts. The signal. From ridge behind, hidden reserves emerged. Manderly foot, Karstark lancers. Knight of Flowers leading Tyrell volunteers who had marched north through secret passes on news of Dragon Alliance. They thundered, fresh force smashing into white flank, severing momentum. Meanwhile, Sam's Raven Riders released barrels of powdered dragonglass from winch towers perched along ridge. Barrels cracked on ice, dust swirling lethal. Whites entering cloud writhed, flesh crystallizing, collapsing in heaps. Walkers sensed threat, but wind carried dust inexorable. Night King urged horse forward, raising hands to summon deeper cold. Frost rippled outward, freezing dragonglass dust midair, nullifying doubt. Yet Drogon, though wounded, reared, flame gusting anew, melting barrier, releasing dust back on tide of dead. Walkers screeched as glass particles embedded, bodies cracking. Jon zeiced moment, urging horse through broken ranks toward Night King. Snow-stung eyes. He leapt from saddle as mount stumbled on icy fissure, rolling to feet before pale horse. Night King dismounted, drawing blade of chiseled ice. The originals equal to Valyrian. Jon leveled Longclaw. Their duel mirrored opposite worlds. Ice shrieking against dark steel, sparks and frost whirls entwining. Each strike reverberated inside Jon's bones. Night King moved like silence incarnate. Every thrust measured, every parry anticipatory. Jon relied on instinct, on hours sparring Robb, on Ned's steady guidance, on wildling scrapes. Sweat froze in hair, lungs burned. Longclaw chipped away Iceblade, yet each chip regenerated as crystal crawled. Lightning ripped sky. Rhaegal, freed, dove, jaws opened. Night King sensed, spun, hurled ice javelin point blank. But Tyrion, from rampart ballista commandeered, loosed quarrel of dragonglass. It struck javelin mid-flight, explosion of blue shards. Night King turned anew. Jon lunged, driving Valyrian point beneath breastplate of frost. Blade sank. Ice screamed. Night King froze stiff. For heartbeat world held breath. Then crack echoed, loud as mountain cleaving. Night King's body fractured along sword's path, radiating fissures. In his eyes flickered something like surprise. Then all shattered, pieces scattering on wind like diamond dust. A moan rippled from whites. They stumbled, dropped inert. Silence descended, broken only by ragged breathing, the hiss of cooling dragon flame. Snow fell softer, now unhurried. Cheer rose. Horse, uncertain at first, Then flood. Giants, wolves, men and dragons alike raised throats. Jon zagged to knees. Spent, Daenerys landed Drogon beside. Sliding down, face streaked with soot and tears. She knelt, took Jon's hand, pressing it to her heart. "You did it," she whispered. He shook head faintly. "We did. But war was not done." Shards of Night King still twitched. Jon stood unsteady, touched Longclaw's tip to central fragment. Ice melted, glyphs of ancient language leaking away like water. In the days following, Eastwatch's halls brimmed with survivors, wounded lining straw pallets where maesters and wildling herbwives sewed and salved. Giants used toppled trees to fortify breaches. Dragons perched on ice cliffs, warming stones for injured children. The sun finally showed, pale disk inching above horizon. Halo of sundogs promising deeper cold yet to come, but for now, gift of clarity. A grand assembly formed on frozen field north of Wall. Banners of wolf, dragon, bear, merman, sunburst, Tyrell rose, even gray kraken of Iron Islands whose ships arrived late but eager to prove loyalty to Queen who promised end to Yara's uncle. Free folk painted new symbols, crossed spears over rising sun. Jon in patched cloak addressed them. "The Night King is fallen, but shadows remain. Somewhere in the wastes, others gather. We stand guard still. Yet, path ahead opens. Houses that bled each other must heal. Wolves will guard the grave of winter. Dragons will seed fields with fire to thaw. And one kingdom will rise where 7 failed." "Nan?" Cheers again. Daenerys stepped up, hair unbound by recent battle. "I name Jon of Houses Stark and Targaryen my equal in war and peace, Warden of the North, Shield of the Living. Together we will build a realm where ice and fire no longer clash, but temper to steel." Jon bowed head. She offered hand. He took. Snowflakes twirled, sparked in sun, like petals. Tyrion muttered to Sam nearby. Symbolism thick as Dornish stew, but effective. Sam smiled, cradling a heavy tome. Genealogies stamped by Citadel confirming Jon's lineage. Truth often tastes best with seasoning. Weeks later, in Winterfell's Godswood, Jon knelt one final time before Hearttree, carving names in fresh plank. Robb, Bran, Arya, Old Nan, Maester Luwin, Ygritte, each etched deep. When finished, he laid plank at tree's base, rose. Daenerys approached. Rickon chased Shaggy Dog amid falling leaves crimson even in winter. The unseasonal bloom a silent miracle of magic returning to land. "Where does your road lead, Jon?" she asked softly. "South, for now. The throne still breeds shadows. Cersei yet holds Sansa. Euron's fleet prowls. But I leave north guarded by wolves, and free folk alike." She touched his cheek. "We will go together." He managed a tired grin. "A dragon's wings fan hotter than wolf's breath. I'll try to keep pace." Above, ravens circled, no longer harbingers of doom but messengers of dawn. Somewhere beyond those clouds, spring lingered. Shy, fragile, possible. But before blossoms, there remained paths through ash and ice. Jon clasped Daenerys' hand, turned toward castle, and stepped forward, each stride accompanied by hearts of many peoples. The song of ice and fire, once a discordant clash, began at last to weave harmony, though its final verse still waited to be written beyond southern horizons. Ghost padded beside, tail high. Snowflakes melted on his warm fur, and in his eyes burned reflection of 2 sigils entwined. A wolf howling against rising sun, and a dragon spiraling skyward.